Hello, and welcome back to the Unstable Opinions podcast, the show where Gabe usually does the intros, but couldn't think of anything good this time. I'm Chris.
I'm Gabe.
And I'm Nick.
And he was put on the spot.
Oh,
anyway.
He said he had something for an intro, and that's...
I knew this was my opportunity, as soon as Gabe wasn't doing the intro anymore, to just trash Gabe.
I'll be back next
Chris
week.
is only doing this because his entire family has been trashing him all day.
Yeah, but you don't want to know about that here.
Come to Chris's house.
All right. So this is the Unstable Opinions podcast. For those of you who have never listened before, this is part 3 of our 3-part Star Wars Skywalker Saga review. 2 weeks ago we did the prequel trilogy, and then last week we did the original trilogy because we're doing them in chronological order. And on normal episodes of the podcast, we usually go around and say what we've been playing or watching since the last episode, and go over some news. But because we've been covering 3 movies per episode, we've kind of stopped doing that for the last couple episodes, and we're not going to do that here. So we're just going to get straight into the review, and this episode we're reviewing The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker. And also, this episode even is a little bit different than the other ones in this series, because we're doing our thoughts on The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi first, and then recording the Rise of Skywalker review later. Mm-hmm. So when you hear this back, it'll be back to back. So as soon as The Last Jedi review ends, the Rise of Skywalker review will start. But we haven't seen.
Yeah, as of right now, we haven't seen the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. So we're probably going to have a lot to talk about with that movie, but for the first part, we're just going to do... I thought this would probably be better just because we'd have so much to talk about with Rise of Skywalker that the focus would kind of be taken away from the first and second movies if we did it all at once. So we're just going to focus on Force Awakens and Last Jedi first, and then after we see Rise of Skywalker, we'll record that part with our thoughts on that movie and how it ties into the rest of the trilogy, and then we'll put it all together for one big finale.
This is going to be an exciting one.
So, I guess let's just get right into it. So, I guess we've kind of done this before with the prequels and the originals, so let's just go over what we like and dislike about them overall before we get into specifics on each one. So do either of you want to start us off?
You know what I hate the most? The lack of politics.
You hate the lack of politics?
Oh my god.
There's not enough. I'm just saying.
There's not enough scenes of people...
It's not a Star Wars movie without the politics.
It's not a modern Star Wars movie unless there's multiple several-minute long scenes of people just sitting in rooms or walking down corridors and just talking.
And what about, the sand? There's no kiss scenes. There's no talk about sand and how rough it is. It gets everywhere.
Anakin didn't get to go to Jakku and talk about how irritating the sand is.
There was the Finn's love story.
Oh yeah,
I don't know,
but we'll get into that when we go over Last Jedi. That's not even really a love story.
It's
also
one
before I forget to mention it until it's too late. Spoiler alert for the entire Star Wars sequel trilogy. We're not going to spoil...
And
for
prequels and originals.
Yes, all Star Wars movies. We're not going to spoil the Rise of Skywalker in the first part of this video, or I guess, depending on where you're listening to this. I don't know if this is going to go up on SoundCloud later, but just in the first part of this review, we're not going to talk about Rise of Skywalker just because we don't know anything about it yet, other than what we've seen from the trailers or speculation. But we are definitely going to spoil Force Awakens and Last Jedi and every other Star Wars movie if it comes up in the conversation. So you've been warned. Okay, so legitimately good and bad things. I guess I'll just start us off. I really love how these movies have sort of adapted the Star Wars aesthetic into modern day. Like, there's a really good mix of CGI when it's necessary and practical effects. Because in the original trilogy, there was a way more practical effects than in, I think...
In the prequels, the technology was there, but they didn't they just thought if they used it all the time,
Yeah.
it would look great.
It's like the original trilogy had such a great like look and feel to it, because everything, pretty much most everything that they could do practical was done practical because they had to, and then they did some other stuff to get around like the walkers and the creatures and stuff with like stop motion and that sort of thing, or puppetry, the prequels, instead of sort of adapting that look, they kind of have their own thing going on with a pretty huge overabundance of CGI, and it doesn't look bad all the time, but it is definitely noticeable that a lot of the environments and ships and everything are fake. And the sequels, I feel like, have a really nice blend of both, like where it can be done practically and look better. It is done practically and it does look better for it. But a lot of the ships and stuff, they are CGI now because they can be CGI and they look good.
Yeah.
Because the technology is advanced enough now to where it won't look dated.
It's great that like now they probably had so much feedback from the prequels and like what people thought they could do to make the effects look better.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that they took a lot of that advice because it looks a lot better.
Yeah.
They blended it much better.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about the bad part. I think 7 and
Well,
8,
I mean, I have more good stuff to say.
We're gonna just go back and forth.
All right.
Because we probably have a lot more good.
Nick likes to be a pessimist.
We just hear you inhale over there, and we're both silently waiting for you to make your point.
So now we're gonna go into the bad stuff.
7 and 8 story-wise is probably the worst out of the 6 movies. Not character development, but the story within it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they probably had the best characters out of the movies, but like throughout the story, like there's such a small chunk of story inside the movies.
I really disagree with that. I feel like Phantom Menace, I can barely tell you what the story even was.
Yeah.
I feel like most of what the prequel trilogy was supposed to be can be summed up by episode 3 with Anakin's turn to the dark side. I feel like not too much of what happens in the other ones really matters. Like, you see a little bit of Anakin's turn in anger in Attack of the Clones, but especially episode 1 and 2, a lot of it is just boring scenes.
Yeah, what I'm getting at is, like, episode 7, you just go in there and you're like, what happened? 30 years ago we won. Mm-hmm. Why are we back to the whole
I do agree with you there. And then on that specific point where the First Order just kind of
is an entire movie of just a ship battle where it could have been more. Like, they could have like cut the ship battle and been like, they escaped, now this is what they're doing to lead up to 9. Instead, they just escape and then we don't know what happens.
There's some great scenes, but the story is kind of iffy.
Yeah.
I don't know if
I guess we'll get more into that when we talk about Last Jedi specifically. I do kind of see what you're saying though.
I wouldn't say it's the worst.
It's not the worst story, but like there's not enough like in there. So like we know nothing.
Yeah. Because Empire Strikes Back even, and I guess I'll bring this up again. I just want to say it before I forget. Because last time I said I was going to bring up a tangent later, and then I forgot about it. But and Empire Strikes Back is structured very similarly in that it begins with the rebels fleeing a base and then running away for most of the movie and then making a stand. But I guess Empire didn't really have that much of a stand in it. But just they have a scene at the end where they're like facing them. And Last Jedi does have something similar, but much more of the movie is taken up by the chase, and there's
like I wish
less
there was
less time dedicated to the bookends of that.
I wish there was like they could have taken 10 minutes out of like the part of the movie where they're just in the ship arguing. Like they could have taken it and like gone to a resistant planet and like said we need your help and all that stuff, and then end the movie there because we don't know where they went. They're just off doing their thing.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure we'll find out. But
it's a really big cliffhanger to where we have no idea, and we should always have like a tiny bit idea of what's about to happen.
I mean, not necessarily. Like you don't really get that much.
But
at the end of Empire Strikes Back,
it makes it feel like Star Wars 9. They didn't know it was going to happen.
I don't exactly know because we haven't seen episode 9 yet.
All this might change.
But I have a feeling that Nick's kind of right in the sense that it kind of mirrors the prequels, how it like it's two movies that are leading up to a big thing, and it's not like the originals in the sense like each one kind of had its own big thing that was going on.
Yeah,
it's not as bad as the prequels.
I think in terms of just overall, because we can't see the big picture yet because we haven't seen episode 9 yet when we're recording this, but I do feel like so far there has been more of an arc than people like to admit.
I think
in terms of the sequels, just because
like I really like the characters in this movie. Like their arcs show over time, but it's not like the overall Star Wars story.
Because with the prequels, you know where it's supposed to go the whole time, so it's easy to say the whole prequel trilogy is about Anakin turning into Darth Vader, but you don't see that much of it in episode 1 and episode 2. Whereas episode 7 and 8, I feel like the main arc of it is Ben Solo's conflict between the light side and the dark side. And I feel like there is a lot more going on that's important in 7 and 8 than there is in 1 and 2. Or a lot more that's actually interesting.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot going on in episodes 1 and 2, but not a lot of it really is as entertaining as the things in 7 and 8.
Yeah, I think just because 7 and 8 didn't expand on the story, it was more entertaining, but there was also less story.
Yeah. I do definitely agree with you, though, that it's weird that the First Order comes out of nowhere. Whereas, we have it does just kind of exist in the originals in the context that they were released. But then we have the prequel trilogy talking about how that formed. And then with the First Order, we don't really get any of that. Yeah. It's just a thing that exists.
I'm like, maybe The Mandalorian or something else will explain it, like a series.
Yeah, but in terms of just the movies by themselves, they don't do anything to explain that other than the First Order.
We needed a bad guy.
Yeah,
we needed
We needed parallels for the Rebels and the Empire, so now it's the Resistance and the First Order.
Even though it's just Rebels and Empire.
But okay, so yeah, I see what you're saying there. But I guess going back to the good.
Let's talk about some good.
The next point is over.
These movies, it does feel like when we're reviewing this, because we reviewed them in chronological order, the prequels were a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
Shut
up. But these movies, especially for following up the prequels, they're just really entertaining, and they're a lot of fun. Yeah. I feel like they're way more consistently gripping than the prequels.
They had a lot of fan service too, which is great for people like us.
But I also feel like it does, like, people like to bash certain things as being like too derivative, like especially just the main plot of The Force Awakens. But I feel like it's different enough to where you won't notice it that much on your first viewing for it to bother you until you start to pick it apart. I mean, other than Starkiller Base, which is obviously just the Death Star, but different.
Death Star, come on.
But the context for everything around it and just the way it's presented, I feel like is different enough for me not to consider it a ripoff of the original Star Wars. And even if you want to like pick apart The Last Jedi, there's a lot of things in that are parallels to The Empire Strikes Back. But again, it's not something you really realize the first time through unless you start picking it apart. And I still think it's entertaining despite the things that it takes from the originals.
Yeah. Like, even, like, last week I was talking about how I didn't really like The Last Jedi, and I rewatched it, and I picked it apart more than I did the first time, and I'm like, this is actually really good.
Yeah.
There was 10 minutes on the casino planet. I thought it was longer.
Yeah.
I thought it was half the movie.
Because everyone, like, these movies, I can't really understand why they're as divisive as they have been.
Because I feel 2 should have been more divisive.
Yeah, I know.
And nowadays, if you bring up 1 and 2, there's the people that praise it, and there's the people that want to destroy it.
Yeah, and then it's the same. It's the same way with these movies. It feels like there's no middle ground, but I feel like it is really weird that people treat these movies as being just like they say that, like, there's a lot of people that say that they're like objectively terrible or they ruin Star Wars or something. I don't get how someone can watch these movies, even Last Jedi. I feel like, because it does, Last Jedi does take risks with its storytelling, but I just have a hard time understanding how people watch these movies.
It has some of the best scenes in Star Wars history.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't understand how that much deep-seated hatred can spawn from movies like these that are made to be entertaining for everyone. You know?
Then, like, 1 and 2, they're not good films. I don't
Yeah.
care what anyone says. Everything about them is not good, except maybe the last battles of both movies.
They never
They
really
have
got
good bits of lore in them in terms
Yeah.
of where they are in the Star Wars universe.
yeah, but we never get to see them accomplish anything like in those.
Yeah,
first
until
two
Like,
episode
movies.
3.
The
Yeah,
only
basically.
good parts of the prequels are the Clone Wars and Episode 3. The Clone Wars...
Yeah, and the Clone Wars don't show up until the end of episode 2, and then they end at
Yeah.
in episode 3. So, I mean, unless you've seen the TV show, that they're
Then
not
you
very
don't-
But that's
significant.
not
That you
the
don't know,
movie.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly,
we're talking about
exactly.
movies here. If you're wanting to get the full story,
Mhm.
you're not getting the Clone Wars, and that's all they talked about in episode 4 through 6. They're like, yeah, back in the Clone Wars days.
Yeah, yeah.
But then they make they make 1 through 3, and the Clone Wars was like an hour.
I feel like the Clone Wars should have taken up a way larger part of episode 2 than
Or
the
Phantom
romance.
Menace shouldn't have been
Yeah.
Anakin as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, even if it was gonna be that, I feel like more things of significance should have happened in episode 1, and the Clone Wars should have taken up more of episode
Yeah.
2.
Like maybe the Clone Wars should have even started at the end of episode 1, being like 5 years after.
Yeah, so
we
then-
just
so
created
then
the
it-
clones, and so
Anakin was brought up during the Clone
Star
Wars.
Wars Attack of the Clones, episode 2 is an entire
Yeah,
Clone Wars movie.
and the clones are actually attacking the entire
that
time.
would actually be great.
Yeah.
It's too late now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least we have good Star Wars movies again.
Yes.
But yeah, so these movies are really fun. I feel like the cast and the dialogue and the delivery is they're way more energetic. They feel more in line with something like the original trilogy.
Yeah, like Finn,
Like-
Poe, and Rey are some of my favorite movie characters of all time.
Yeah, yeah.
Like just them as I even go to Marvel, and they're better characters than the Marvel characters.
So yeah, my favorite thing about these two movies is their character development, because that's something that I love in any movie, is what they're gonna do with a character and how they get from one place to another. They do a lot with these characters.
Yeah.
Especially Rey and Kylo Ren.
Oh yeah.
Them
yeah.
their interactions and the whole thing they had in in episode 8.
Oh yeah,
How they could,
yeah. With them connecting through the Force and stuff.
Yeah, and they were both trying to get each other to go over to each other's sides, and
Mhm.
it was great.
Yeah. I feel like every character so far has had an arc, even not even just in over the course of all the movies, but in the individual movies you can find things that are satisfying about each character's arc.
So-
Especially my favorites are Finn and Kylo Ren, just because I feel like Kylo Ren's struggle with his lineage and the dark side is really interesting.
I think he has
And
the
then
best one, yeah.
Finn's struggle with his past as part of the First Order, being a stormtrooper and having it's kind of left unclear how much of the conflict he's actually seen, because he says that he was just a janitor as part of the First Order.
Yeah.
But and then the battle at the beginning of Force Awakens is his first proper battle, but it can be implied by the way he talks about his time with the First Order that it was miserable, and he's seen a lot of stuff that he wish he hadn't seen.
Yeah.
So I think those two struggles in particular are
There's-
really interesting.
One thing I'm kind of hoping for the last movie to do more with, in 7 and 8 there's this one rebel character who's always helping Poe with stuff. I hope she's a bigger character because she's still alive.
Oh
I
yeah,
was making sure
Probably
I think I know
Logan
who you're
and
talking about.
the
Yeah,
blonde girl,
Yeah,
at
yeah,
the
yeah.
end of The Last Jedi, she's with them, and I'm I want them to do more with her because she seems like such a good rebel
If
character.
she's still alive and there, then they probably will do more with
But
her.
they put so much focus on her, like low key focus, and I'm just why don't you use this character more?
yeah.
It's she reminds me of Leia.
Well, I mean, there's only so much a character can do to remind you of Leia with the limited screen time, but okay, let's think. So, talked about the presentation.
Some good, some bads.
Yeah, these movies. This is something that frustrated a lot of people with them, but it uses the Force in ways that I think are really cool, in ways that we haven't seen before.
That's not how the Force works.
Yeah.
We'll use the Force.
That's not how the Force works.
Like especially Rey and Kylo connecting through the Force, or Luke projecting himself onto the battlefield in Last Jedi.
that
was
was
one of
that
the
part
coolest
was
things
great.
ever.
Yeah.
I actually never saw that coming. I didn't.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, but I don't. I mean, I guess less so as part of the Force Awakens, but we also see that a little bit with like Rey connecting with Luke's lightsaber and having that vision.
Yeah.
Just I feel like the Force is kind of the ultimate plot device. It's whatever the plot needs it to be. It doesn't have a specific set of rules, and when you apply that set of rules to it, which is something that the prequels started to do and then stopped because people didn't like it.
Yeah,
when you start to apply a set of rules to the Force, it becomes less interesting.
I think the only aspect of the Force I didn't like was the one scene in The Last Jedi when Leia's like, "I'm coming back, y'all."
Oh yeah, see, I think that's a ability that Jedi should have, but the way it was done in Last Jedi makes it look kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Like
she looks like Mary Poppins.
Yeah, I was gonna say she looks like Mary Poppins, like floating back to the ship.
My name's Mary Poppins, y'all.
It's like the fact that Jedi should be able to use the Force to like
levitate,
push and pull themselves, because they can use it to push and pull other people away from them.
Yeah.
So obviously they should be able to do that to themselves.
But no, they just make.
But just the way it was done in that specific scene, I feel like makes it look kind of dumb.
Yeah.
But
and it can like help them sustain their life in space or something like that. That should be utilized more.
Yeah. But in general, not only am I a fan of the way it does things new, I'm a fan of the way it kind of restores the mystery of it that was part of the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like the prequels, I mean, they didn't do this too much, not as much as I remembered, but just the whole thing with like midichlorians, and like if you read about where George Lucas was planning to take it with his original plan for the sequel trilogy before he sold Lucasfilm to Disney, it was going to get even more specific than that.
Yeah.
Like it was going to go from the midichlorians, and then they were controlled by something called the Wills, and it was like a microbiology thing, and like it's just
you can't explain
when you
this
start
stuff.
like when you start picking that stuff apart, it's just not as interesting anymore, and you're like, oh,
that's
okay.
just it's like I hate to be the person to be like, I'm happy George Lucas sold the rights.
Yeah.
But I'm actually happy he did, because we could have gotten 3 more prequel movies, and I don't want that.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of what George Lucas was able to accomplish with the originals, and there's even part of the prequel trilogy that I'm willing to appreciate about George Lucas's vision. But I am glad that he was kind of not. I don't mean to be disrespectful.
That's
to
what
him.
I'm saying.
Like,
I'm trying not to.
Yeah,
I just think
I am glad that they were able to put Star Wars in the hands of other filmmakers that were fans of the original Star Wars and kind of see what they did with it and where they chose to take it, because I feel like it was better off for it.
Star Wars is too like, too big of a thing now to have only one person, one mind behind it.
Calling
like
all the shots.
I would love it for so many of his ideas to like. I love the fact that they're all there.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that are. But I think like he should have collaborated more.
Yeah,
with
like in the original trilogy.
Yeah, a lot more people had their hands in, and could call some shots.
Yeah,
and it turned out great.
Yeah, but I'm glad that now we have these movies.
We're where we are.
Yeah, I'm satisfied with where we are now in terms of Star Wars.
The Force in these movies, I think, is much better. Like it kind of has a mind of its own. Mm-hmm. Which is mystical in its own way. It's not just a science.
Yeah,
thing.
I'm a huge fan of the idea that anyone can use the Force.
Yeah.
Like obviously there's people that are more Force sensitive than other people.
Yeah, they kind of do it. But
because the Force is like surrounding everyone.
Yeah.
Like the way they say it is, then like anyone can connect with the Force if they know how.
Like that kind of like in a scene in Rogue One, we were watching it earlier when Cassian, like, he was about to shoot the guy, and then you hear that whoosh. Like, that's the Force being like, don't do that.
Yeah. Or just the guy he's not a Jedi, but he's like, the guy that's like, I'm one with the Force and the Force is with me, and he's blind, but he can still do all these things because he feels connected with the Force. Mm-hmm. Like, that's how the Force should be presented.
It's like, I was thinking about it, like how they do it in Doctor Strange with magic.
Mm-hmm.
Like
anyone can use magic.
Though anyone can have a connection to magic,
mm-hmm.
they have to train with it. They have to learn how to use it.
Yeah.
Just like any Jedi has.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way that they should have done
it. Like Anakin wouldn't be able to use the Force if Qui-Gon didn't teach him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's other shows I watch with magic.
The entire Skywalker saga wouldn't take place if Qui-Gon Jinn left him on Tatooine.
Yeah. I mean, they kind of imply that the reason Anakin is so good at piloting the pod in the pod race is because he can subconsciously use the Force. But apparently before that one race, he had never won one. So... but anyway, so just generally speaking, I love the way that these movies present older Star Wars ideas. The presentation is amazing. the characters and the dialogue and everything.
So great.
The music has been great in every Star Wars movie. I feel like it's always a highlight.
I think it's
Like-
the best in the sequels.
I mean, I find myself like humming the themes of the sequels all the time.
Ray's theme.
Because we've
Oh
only
my
gotten
God, yeah.
we've only gotten better with music like throughout the years.
Yeah,
it,
like-
it
like,
always just keeps getting
Every
better.
single trilogy has its iconic themes, but I feel like Rey's theme specifically is my favorite theme in any Star Wars movie.
I can
uh,
agree with that.
Just because I feel like it just kind of, I've said this before too, it kind of just captures the magic of what Star Wars is better than I feel like any other theme has. Not to say that the other themes aren't all great, because they are, but
One of my
there's just something about it.
One of my other favorites is the Resistant theme.
Mhm.
Like when Poe comes in, he's like,
Oh yeah, and he's like leading all the ships.
and then you
Yeah.
just hear his music, and you're like, this is perfect.
Yeah, and it feels like, I feel like if I didn't know any better, I would feel like those were themes that were part of the original trilogy because they capture that
I
spirit
think
so
they
well.
play off of them, but they obviously like have their own
Yeah,
twist to
yeah.
it, and I love it.
Yeah, John Williams is a genius.
He's amazing.
So I'm really glad that he's been a part of all of these movies, and I'm really glad that he came back for the sequels. So I guess now that we've got all that stuff out of the way, do you want to get into specifics?
Yeah, we can do that.
All right. So, The Force Awakens. This is kind of an unpopular opinion. This is my favorite Star Wars movie.
It's my second favorite.
What's your first favorite?
5.
Oh yeah, I mean that's kind of
That's
a given. 5 is my second favorite.
I think five's my first favorite. I never really thought about past my first favorite, but
Yeah.
this one was amazing.
Yeah.
So
I feel like
Gabe. One thing you need to do is map out every single one of them because every Star Wars fan has done it.
yeah,
We have 1 and 2.
even
at the
those that
bottom.
aren't that devoted,
Yeah.
I've ranked all the Star Wars
Everyone's
movies at
done
I
one
mean,
point.
hey, just take all of my ratings at the end of these, and then
Yeah.
just see
None of
how
your
I rate
ratings
'em.
make sense.
Yeah, they do.
The only rating that's made sense so far is my Attack of the Clones rating.
Yeah.
This is 1 out of 5.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like I was saying earlier, I just love the way that I just love the presentation of it. The music is fantastic. All the new themes are great. The way that it adapts certain things from past Star Wars movies. You know, this movie is the one that comes under fire for being, like people call it, a remake of A New Hope.
Mhm.
And, you know, obviously it does
I
take some
find it
beats
so
like
much better than A New Hope.
yeah.
I
It's
think
like
it's-
the remake New Hope needed.
This one is so controversial because whenever anything has as high, like as many expectations
Mhm.
as like this had, it's always going to displease some
Yeah.
people.
And
That
it's
it doesn't
always, like-
match what they wanted it to be.
Yeah. That's always kind of how I've looked at a lot of the backlash the sequels have gotten, is because it's been so long since the original trilogy that everyone kind of has expectations for what the movies should have been
Yeah.
in their heads, and then when the movies didn't match with what they were thinking of, they kind of just like disregarded them
Mm-hmm.
or just, you know, continuously trashed them online.
It's not what it should have been. It's like it was.
It's like what
What do
Tell me
you
what you
think
wanted
it
to
should
be.
have been?
And
Did you
it-
want to
and
pull
in-
up the comic books from all the way back then and be like, yeah, we're going to talk about midichlorians for the entire movie?
Yeah.
No, we don't want that.
Yeah, and like a
Could've
lot
been
of
worse.
times the alternative would be something boring, like Luke just being an all-powerful Jedi Master who can do everything and is just perfect in every way is boring.
Yeah.
Like that wouldn't be fun to watch. But anyway, I guess we'll talk about that in Last Jedi. Force Awakens, I feel like, it's almost weird because when this movie came out, I feel like there wasn't that much controversy surrounding it. It
wasn't
was just
any.
kind of, you know, there was the conversation about what it adapted from A New Hope, which, like I said, I feel like it's different enough and the context is different enough to where it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Especially because it has been so long since the last Star Wars movie, and it's a different team making it, that it makes sense to go with something that's a little familiar, because you know it works. But I had like a run-on sentence, and then I kind of lost where I was going with that.
You know,
Oh, but I was saying, the controversy I feel like wasn't there until Last Jedi came out, because that
Yeah.
movie was really divisive, and then people, I feel like, kind of went back and
Yeah.
started trashing Force Awakens too, and just trashing the prequels in general. I feel like, other than the fact that it adapted things from A New Hope, in general, I feel like this movie was pretty well loved when it first came out.
see, that's the problem now with, like, because this is 2 days before we're seeing, or a day before we're seeing the new movie.
Yeah, I'm seeing it
Is
tomorrow.
everyone's hating it because it's like The Force Awakens. They played it safe.
Mm-hmm.
But you're mad that they're playing it safe. But in 8, you're mad that they didn't play it safe.
Yeah.
So what do people want?
You can't win. You really can't win. If you want to
Like,
make a new Star Wars
Everyone
movie.
expects something different.
Everything
They-
I've read or heard about the new movie is that it's for the fans.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for normal moviegoers. It's for the fans.
Like
So
Endgame was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like, you're not gonna... If you haven't seen Star Wars 1 through 8, you're gonna miss something.
Yeah. Something I was really worried about with 9, which I guess we'll talk about when we actually review it later in this episode, is that I didn't want it to not take any risks because of the backlash to episode 8. Because for the most part, it has its problems, obviously, but I feel like that the risks that it took are part of what make it so great to me and to a lot of other people. So it'd be a shame for it to just play it safe. But even then, I feel like I would still love it because I love Force Awakens. And Force Awakens, even though it introduces a lot of new things, it does play it safe.
Yeah.
Keeps
I'm hoping
it relatively...
9 has, like, that mix of 7 and 8 to really piss people off, but also be really good to me.
Yeah. But yeah, so I guess talking again about 7 specifically, just I feel like it does kind of recapture that sort of magical feeling of Star Wars. I really like the presentation of everything. The new characters are all great. I feel like I like Snoke way better in Episode 8 than I do in Episode 7.
We still don't
But-
know who Snoke is.
Yeah, well...
I saw-
I mean,
I saw
I don't
this-
think who Snoke is, like... Oh, wait, hold on. You saw this thing?
Oh no, I saw a picture of like, you know how there's those like celebrity photo things where like they take your face and morph it into a celebrity's face.
Mhm.
Someone took Snoke's face and morphed it into like one of the kids that Anakin killed.
And
it, yeah, it was the one that said, "What are we gonna do?"
Oh
and then,
my god.
and then I mean,
That would be incredible.
that would be. I don't know if I would agree with that or.
Dude, I would love that.
That would be great.
I'd be fine with it.
Yeah, but...
It would make sense.
Yeah, I feel like it doesn't really matter who Snoke is. They can expand upon him in a spin-off or a book or something if they want to. But, when the original trilogy came out, no one knew who the Emperor was, and no one complained about not knowing his backstory. And just because now we have
Did
his
the
backstory
Emperor
with the prequels...
even show up until the 6th movie?
I mean, he showed up in Empire Strikes Back in a hologram for one scene, and it wasn't even the same guy playing him.
I think the
So-
big issue with not knowing who Snoke is that we've already had 6 movies before this.
Mhm.
So having this random guy just show up
Yeah.
and be like, "Yo, what's up, guys?" On the
But
new
see,
Snoke
that's
Did
the
we
thing
know
is that-
much about the First Order?
No, we
Yeah,
know
but
nothing.
it's like if you're gonna judge all of these movies on equal ground based on the context that they were released, like Return of the Jedi, despite the cameo, I mean, you can even say the same thing about 7 and 8, where like Snoke's real major appearance is in 8, but he's introduced in 7 through a
Yeah.
hologram.
Yeah.
I feel like they're gonna
but-
like explain the entire First Order and Snoke in Episode 9,
Yeah.
which I don't want a whole explanation, but just a small, he originated from this would be nice.
I'd like
Yeah.
maybe
Well-
a little something, but I wouldn't complain if
Yeah.
they didn't do it.
I don't even. I mean, honestly, that's fine. But I feel like I don't even really need them to waste time on it because he is kind of just a stand-in for Kylo to eventually take over from.
Yeah.
And the Emperor in the originals, people expect a backstory from Snoke because we've had the Emperor's backstory. But when the originals came out, we didn't have a backstory for the Emperor. So I feel like the only reason people even care about Snoke's backstory is because of the Emperor having his backstory told, even though we don't necessarily need it.
Yeah,
because-
I just
and
kinda
in the
wanna
same
know
way
where
that,
he
like-
came from.
Yeah,
Like, it's like we killed the Sith Lord, Darth Vader's dead, the dark side's gone.
Mhm.
But then Snoke appears, and he has all this power. It's like,
Well, because he was a
trained
Jedi
you?
in training.
what if
Anakin
it's that
did,
guy
and then
from
he
the
died.
one game, The Force Unleashed?
I've never played the Force Unleashed.
I played the
but-
Force Unleashed a little.
He
I-
knows who I'm talking about, the main character.
Oh yeah.
He was killed so many times.
Oh.
I don't remember. Like I never finished it.
Oh, he got killed in the first. They cloned him in the second, and so he was like, the main character you're playing the entire game is a clone.
Okay. That's pretty
Spoiler
neat,
alert
actually.
for Force Unleashed.
And we
too,
said everything.
Every-
We've
every
said
Yeah,
everything
but I
Star
feel like
Wars.
even I wasn't expecting us to go there.
I didn't know. I wasn't gonna talk about it.
No one's gonna ever play those games again.
I might.
You don't know.
You don't
Maybe
know
they'll
me.
do a third one. They brought back Clone Wars. Anything is
They were
possible.
supposed to release a third one years ago, and they
Yeah.
canceled it.
Oh shoot. Well,
So-
yeah,
Well-
never mind, because they're never going to release Battlefront 3, the original one.
Hey man,
So
Half-Life came back. Anything's possible.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
Piranha Plants in Smash.
Piranha-
Anything is possible.
Sans is in Smash. Anything is possible.
Anyway, back to
Back
episode
to Star
7.
Wars,
So,
episode 7.
Snoke, I feel like I don't like him that much in this movie.
He's just there.
He's just there.
He's another bad Star
I like
Wars-
him way better in 8 because he's way more sinister and he's actually physically there and
Yeah.
he's not giant for no reason.
I actually
but-
thought he was gonna be that huge
Yeah, I
until
thought he was
the
gonna be
until the
huge.
hologram faded away. I was like, I'm so much more like relieved that
Yeah.
there's not just giant dude.
It's
in Star-
hierarchy of scale. He's bigger than everyone else
It
because
means
he's more important.
No,
I really
yeah.
like General Hux though, just because he's just
He
I
reminds me of
loved.
Hitler.
I loved
It's
him.
all he reminds me
it's
of. I
just-
see him, and he's like, everyone's like, it's like all hail the First Order. And
oh
everyone
yeah,
does
no,
the
there's
Nazi
definitely
salute.
Nazi like parallels, but it's just he's just so funny to me because he feels like a guy that's like trying to be more commanding than he knows that he is.
Yeah.
Like he knows that he doesn't have as much power as he wants.
I want to talk about
but-
scenes from the 8th, but we'll get
Yeah,
there.
we'll get there. But he does kind of you do kind of get that from him in this movie a little bit. What else? What have we talked about so far? We talked about
Characters.
new characters. Talked about Snoke and everything. We talked about the familiarity of it all.
Force.
Talk
We
about
talked
the
about
death
the
of
Force.
Han Solo.
Oh yeah. Oh, we haven't even talked about how the legacy characters are handled in these
Mhm.
Oh,
movies.
yeah.
Because I mean, I
I
guess
mean, Luke isn't there until the last
Yeah.
2 seconds.
I mean these the legacy characters really are kind of there just for the new characters to play off of. But I'm glad they're there. But yeah, I mean, it's. I guess that says a lot about how great the new characters are when we barely even remember to talk about the other characters.
Because they're not
But yeah.
the main focus.
I mean, Han Solo
Yeah.
was the main focus this movie.
Yeah.
Han Solo was.
And Luke in Episode 8, and
Well, because
Leia in both of them.
Han-
What I heard
yeah,
was
Han
Leia's
and-
going to be the main focus in 9.
Han and
Mm,
that's
Leia
what I
are.
saw.
Well, I mean, I don't know because they've been
Never
using
mind.
exclusively archived footage of
This
Carrie
is what
Fisher,
I-
so
I was watching a non-spoiler review, and the guy was like, "Yeah, they used Leia most of the movie, and it looked real somehow."
oh.
I was like,
Because I mean, I guess what they said in press releases was that Leia's scenes were deleted scenes from 7 and 8 that they rewrote scenes around to make it make sense. Which I guess it's a cool way of putting Carrie Fisher in the movie without some weird CGI Carrie Fisher, like in Rogue One. But yeah, I mean, I have a hard time figuring out how she would be the major character in that
well,
movie.
not like the major character, but like she's the only one left.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
she has more of a role than
Well,
Lando does.
Luke,
Well-
I mean, we don't know yet, but
Hey,
I
hey.
don't know.
Luke's
There's,
gonna be a Force ghost at 9.
there's Wookiee.
Chewbacca's just not
Chewbacca's
going
alive.
away.
He's. I mean, he lives.
And neither is C-3PO and R2-D2.
Obviously,
We're not there yet.
Well,
We're not there yet. We don't know.
we don't know yet.
But
but they don't have expiration dates. Is what we're
Yeah.
talking about.
Dave doesn't know
Anyway.
what we were talking about. It's
Oh.
fine. We'll talk to him after.
yeah.
We'll mentally, like, emotionally prepare him just in case.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
but
sure something might happen to them in this new one.
we don't know yet.
I'm talking about 7 and
All
8.
we know is
Yeah.
a scene from
7
9.
and 8. So in this movie, Han Solo is a big part of it. I feel like the way they handled the other characters, like from the originals in this movie, is done really well. Where they're kind of like meant to like, because even though the new characters are all great, it is good that we have the other characters to kind of usher in the new generation.
Mhm.
It kind of like is respectful to the originals. And like, people like to say that it's not just because of, Han Solo gets killed and then
I
Luke,
want to say
Luke
I
gets killed
cried
in the
when Han
next
Solo
one.
got killed in theaters. I was
Yeah.
like, no, you can't do that.
I knew it was happening though.
Yeah, it's
I
like
knew
when
it was
as
gonna
soon as that
happen,
scene
but-
starts, you kind of see it coming, but you're still kind of like, no, don't do it.
Don't do it.
I kind of thought
He's the
that as soon
best
as
character from the originals. Don't do it.
as soon as I found out that Kylo Ren was his son, I
Mhm.
knew, and he was on the bad side. Like something's gonna happen. He's gonna get involved,
Yeah,
and they're gonna have a father-son like moment again.
Yeah.
and then he's gonna die.
Yeah, I do really like too that they didn't make a big deal that much. I mean, they didn't talk about it before the movie came out, so it would be a surprise. But I am glad that they didn't try to make it a big plot twist that Kylo Ren was Han Solo's son, because the family relations thing, if they tried to play it off like it was a huge thing again, it would have just been like, oh, okay, you're just doing Empire Strikes Back again.
I'm your father. Wow.
It would have seemed like they were only making that connection in order to make it seem like the other ones.
Yeah.
Whereas it's being used to tell its own story, and the way they introduce it is,
It's just another part of Kylo Ren's struggle. To get over to the dark side, he has to kill his father.
Mm-hmm. And Han Solo himself is great in this movie, just because he does. It's Harrison Ford again. He does carry the spirit of that character really well. But there's also between him and Leia, there's a little bit more emotional depth because their son turned to the dark side and Luke's missing, and they've been separated all this time.
They had to cope.
I'm just sad we never
Yeah.
got like the trio together one last time.
Yeah.
Maybe as Force Ghost.
Han Solo's Force Ghost.
Yeah,
like
he's
we
the first
said.
Jedi. That'd be so funny if in Episode 9 he just shows up. He's like, "Hey, I'm here too." Like,
how'd you figure out to come back?
I don't know. This
That
was a bunch of mumbo jumbo.
This isn't really how the
Since
Force
Luke
works.
is the most powerful Jedi, I wouldn't be surprised if he brought Han Solo back as a Force Ghost himself.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if he came back to life entirely.
Yeah, no one dies.
I mean,
it's like
you
Pirates of
see-
the Caribbean. No
you
one
saw
dies.
Yoda in Episode 8. He was
Oh man, I
full
can't wait to talk
flesh.
about that scene. But we'll finish talking about 7. So before I forget to mention it, so we said before, Starkiller Base is obviously just
it's just
a Death Star
times 5.
Yeah, I do like. This is kind of a dumb thing, but I like the name of it, Starkiller Base, because Luke Skywalker's original name in the original trilogy was going to be Luke Starkiller. So it's kind of a cool Easter egg, and I do think that it does kind of carry more weight, even though it is essentially the same thing as the Death Star, but on a bigger scale. Whereas in A New Hope, they blow up a planet and it's just gone, and there isn't much time spent focused on the ramifications of that.
Yeah.
Whereas in this one, they're destroying the Republic so that the First Order can take over as the new government, and you see everyone on the planet watching the beam come before the planet blows up, and there's way more I feel like the scene itself is way more dramatic, so it does make it seem more threatening.
Yeah.
And also I really like the final battle as, after Han Solo gets killed, when the planet's breaking apart and they're fighting in the forest.
And Rey kind of had that upper hand, which I didn't really think that
Rey
they were
had
gonna.
the high ground.
Yeah. It always works with the Force.
Mhm.
I mean, you got to get the high ground, and then they can't try it. No, I thought that battle was gonna end with them being more equals, and then I mean we'll talk about the battle in 8, but in this one I didn't think that she was gonna overpower him by using the Force.
Yeah, and in reality, she in a usual case she shouldn't have been able to, but Kylo Ren did get shot by Chewbacca in the scene before, so he was wounded. Yeah. So he was having trouble fight, and he was able to defeat Finn so easily because Finn doesn't have the same connection with the Force as that Rey does.
Yeah, and Rey got a hit on him, I think, on the face or something.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, she towards the end when she realizes that she can connect with the Force, and she has used the Force before.
Yeah.
But when she's fighting him and she realizes she can tap into the Force to help her, she does start landing more hits on him. And then she does slice him up
and
the
then
face.
she goes
cool.
Yeah. And then his face go, ah! Misa hurt.
Yeah. Something, I forget where I heard this, but something I think that would have been cool if they did. They didn't have to do it, but it would have been cool is if after Kylo Ren kills Han Solo, if he had picked up the mask and put it back on and they played the Darth Vader theme just to kind of because it's weird that he's not wearing the mask in the final battle.
How did he get the mask back if he didn't have it and they picked him up from?
Maybe he made a new one.
Maybe he
just
has a
had
whole
two the whole
closet
time.
of masks.
Yeah.
because he's obsessed with him and
he's obsessed with
breaking all
being
of them.
Vader.
I love like all the stuff that portrayed Kylo Ren as like a Vader fanboy. Like even like the trailer for the Skywalker Saga, the Lego Star Wars game, the scene with Kylo Ren is him building a snowman that looks like Darth Vader in the final battle of the Force Awakens.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think let's is there anything we haven't talked about yet that we want to cover before
Poe and his flying skills?
Yeah.
They are the best in Star Wars history.
I
That
think
man comes in and shoots down like 13
He has-
TIE fighters.
Yeah,
in one
it's
go.
even better in
Amazing
episode
fight
8, I think.
scenes.
But yeah, and like you said, like the
I
the
think
Resistance theme.
his coolest scene was in episode 7 when Finn and Han Solo and Chewbacca were all trapped, and then he comes in and shoots all the stormtroopers.
Mm-hmm.
He shoots all the TIE fighters around him.
And especially because we didn't know that he was gonna be back. Like,
Yeah.
they made it seem like he died in the beginning of the movie. So then when he shows up again and like saves them, it's really cool.
It's like, that's one hell of a pilot.
Yeah.
I'm glad that he wasn't dead. Like they were playing it off like he died.
It is really odd to me that Poe spends most of this movie disconnected from the other characters, because at the end of 8, and I guess we'll talk about this too, but at the end of 8, he meets up with Rey and he's like, "Hey, I'm Poe," and only in that moment did I realize, oh my god,
They haven't.
we're 2 movies in, they haven't ever talked before.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't really need to. It would have kind of been weird and out of place, I guess, but.
It's just odd that
It is odd that he's
that
one of the
far
main
in,
characters and they've never
they're
spoken
introducing.
before.
Yeah.
You know,
This is the first time we saw BB-8.
BB-8 is my favorite droid.
BB-8's
love
the
him.
best droid. Like, I'm
He's a
sorry,
good
boy.
C-3PO and R2-D2 have been there all movies,
Yeah,
but BB-8 comes in. I think it's episode 8 when he goes off, so we'll wait for that.
Well,
but even in this movie, he has so many great moments.
Yeah, but I did love to see him and R2's interaction together.
He's like, R2, wake up, please.
Yeah, there's a scene at the end of 8 where they're just having a conversation.
Yeah.
It's really cute. But I do like, there's this movie has moments where like, he's trying to, he doesn't know whether he should tell them the location of the base when he finds out
Yeah,
that
and he's
Finn
like,
isn't with the
"Please?"
Resistance. And then he gives him the thumbs up, and then he gives him the thumbs up back with the lighter.
Yeah,
That
no,
was
I thought
awesome.
I thought that was like him flicking him off. That's what I saw. That's what I saw it as.
Oh no!
Because I mean, the lighter's right in the middle of the.
But he doesn't have any other fingers though.
It's the middle.
He's very cute, and I want
He's
one.
the best.
I have a BB-8 plush. Like, it's
I want the
life-
I
I
saw
want
it,
the
yeah. I
remote
almost took
controlled
it.
one. They sell one that's like
When did you see
move it
it?
around.
When were you in my house?
We went hiking.
Oh, yeah, he was out that time.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's been in storage for a long time.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. All right. So I mean, I think that's everything I have to say about episode 7. I feel like it was a great reintroduction to the series.
Yeah,
and
I
it did a lot
didn't-
of stuff.
I
Really, really
didn't
well.
have any real expectations going in. I was just
Mhm.
excited to see another Star Wars when
Yeah.
I was first going in. So I loved seeing it the first time. I love seeing it again.
Mm-hmm.
I
And-
just think it's an amazing movie.
It is.
All I can
great.
say.
Yeah.
I'll watch it again.
Yeah, no.
I don't
Now,
mind.
now that I haven't been saving it off for watching it at a certain point in this marathon, I can go back and watch it whenever I want, and that's
Well, we're gonna
liberating.
watch 9 and be like,
but-
now we can't watch any because 9 has all 8 movies in it anyways.
But okay, so 7 is great, and now let's talk about
8.
The Last Jedi.
Great and 8.
The most-
rhyme.
The most polarizing,
She's so dumb.
one of the most polarizing movies ever made. I'm not even gonna acknowledge what you just said.
Don't.
Do it.
Um,
Do it.
But episode 8, it's one of the most polarizing movies ever made. I feel like.
Mhm.
I feel like I expected, and I feel like even like after I saw this, I was like, yeah, that movie was great, and I was surprised when I found out that other people like hated it.
I just
Like not
wanted
even
the
just like they
casino.
weren't fans of it; they like hated it.
Yeah.
See, I didn't hate it. I was just, the casino pissed me off so much. And I'm just like, this was so pointless. It felt like the entire movie. I go back and rewatch it. It only takes 10 minutes. I'm like, wait,
And
there
I
was
feel
more,
like-
I swear.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of that comes from people blowing things out of proportion when they complain about it. So if you spend a lot of time away from the movie and all you hear about is people like, oh, this part sucks, it was pointless, then you just get it in your head like, yeah, I mean, I didn't like that part, and it did take up...
All I remember is that year was the year of the annoying casinos where they were in every movie. And so, like, Black Panther had a casino, and everyone was like, why did they go to a casino?
Yeah. I'm just not a fan of casino scenes in general, but
that year in general...
hopefully SpongeBob next year will fix...
Yeah,
hopefully SpongeBob gambling will be what fixes my problem with casino scenes. But I think overall, this movie does, I feel like it is more flawed than The Force Awakens, but I feel like the good stuff
it has more good moments.
It has way more good than bad, and the good stuff is some of the best stuff in the entire Star Wars saga.
It's just specific scenes. It's not even like the whole movie in general. It's certain scenes within the movie, and I know we can recite them.
Oh yeah. Well, I even feel like most of the plot lines are told really well. I feel like everything with Rey in this movie,
everything with Rey and Poe is really good.
Yeah. I kind of like, I know you were saying like, I guess we'll probably talk about our problems first just to get them out of the way. Yeah. My least favorite, because this movie does have a lot of going on. It has a bunch of different plot lines. My least favorite is Holdo and
Well, I don't like Holdo, but I like Poe being like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, he was saying what we were thinking.
Yeah.
Everything going on
But see, that even for me makes it more frustrating. Like, I am glad that he isn't just like, okay, I guess I'll just listen to her. I do like Poe's arc in this movie about learning to be more patient and less hot-headed. But I just feel like the fact that Holdo took over, she's a character we've never seen before.
Should have been Admiral Akbar.
It should have been Admiral Akbar.
It should have been, and that would have made the movie.
Because at least, you know, Akbar is a person we've seen he's been a part of the team before. We know he's capable of making good decisions.
And a lot of people were saying it too, like.
Yeah, like I just Holdo.
They just killed Akbar like that. They're just like, he's gone.
Yeah, and like. That was really sad,
yeah.
but and they point it out too. Like, they don't name any of the other crew members that were killed. They were just like Admiral Akbar, the rest of the bridge. They were all killed. But yeah, no, Holdo just annoys me so much just because she is a character we've never seen before, so we can't put our trust in her. And it's like, you know, you do feel like, you know, obviously she has to have like
the reason they did that with Holdo is just so we couldn't trust her. So it felt like the audience was also confused, and it made us feel the same way.
But I feel like the payoff should have been way better if they were going to do that. Because, you know, you get to the end, and their explanation... Because essentially their entire plan is, we're going to keep moving forward, there's a rebel base on this planet, we're going to go hide there.
You could have told Poe.
You could have told anyone.
If
they could have explained it.
Because it was Poe and, like, that one girl I wish had more of a character. Because, like, I don't even think she talks. She's just there.
Yeah, the blonde girl.
Yeah, like, all she does is point guns at people and does whatever Poe tells her to do.
Yeah, but, I mean...
So she's staff?
Yeah, she's one of the... She's one of the crew.
She's just staff.
But, so, I feel like if they were going to do the thing where, like, we weren't meant to put our trust in Holdo, which I did think, like, as it went on, I was like, oh, this is interesting. I wonder where they're going to take this. The payoff for it is literally Leia saying she was more interested in protecting the light than she was seeming like a hero. When it's like, it's not... Just because you're telling everyone the plan doesn't mean you're going out of your way to flaunt your status, you know? Yeah. Like, you're just trying to make sure that everyone remains calm and knows what the plan is. But instead, Poe, like, you know, he does the mutiny against her because, you know, she's given them no reason to trust her and she's not telling them the plan. And from their perspective, everyone's just slowly getting killed off and they have no plan.
Yeah.
So that part really frustrates me.
I think the best part about that was the payoff, like at the end with the whole scene.
She has the coolest death scene ever.
And then her going through the
That
ship.
is the only good part about her.
Yeah, but that was the best scene in the I think all of Star Wars history.
Amazing to see.
That's up there for me.
Yeah.
I think my favorite scene.
If you say BB-8 in the Walker.
No.
Okay.
That was awesome. That was awesome. My favorite scene. No, you know what? I'll save it. We'll get to that.
No, I want you to say it now.
All
You're
right.
gonna forget.
Well, because I was because I was talking about, like, other than that plot line, because you were talking about plot lines, everything with Rey like when we're following Rey and her interactions
and
with
you
other
see
characters.
Luke drink green milk from that
That's-
weird, disgusting
That
loser thing.
cow thing.
But I thought all that was perfect. Like I loved where Luke ended up, which, for the record, was George Lucas's idea. That Luke was hermited away on this island and was regretful of a failed Jedi that he tried to train that turned against him. Like people are saying like Disney or like Rian Johnson ruined Luke's character. That was George Lucas's idea.
And I loved
So
It was
I
really
love
good.
where Luke is in this movie.
I didn't want him to be like all power. Like
Yeah.
just like if Yoda and Obi-Wan were like in the like just sitting there waiting to be killed.
Yeah.
Luke would have been killed by the First Order. It's good he was hiding.
Yeah, and also like, you know, it just given everything that Luke's been through with the Empire and stuff, it does make sense that would scare him and feel like, okay, I can't screw up any more than I already have. I need to remove myself from the equation. And he's just so cynical over it because he's failed, and you know, from his perspective, everything that Jedi have done in hindsight has been a failure.
And it has
And
been.
but even with all that great stuff with Luke and like his development because of his interactions with Rey and you know him learning that there's still, you know, because Rey is kind of what portrays to him that his legend is more important to people than what he actually is. So he needs to like upkeep that, which I guess is kind of ironic given the way people reacted to him because they wanted him to be what the characters in this movie want him to be.
Yeah.
But we do get to see that at the end of the movie when he faces the First Order. Like, and you know, he isn't, I guess, technically there, but I don't see why that's a problem, you know?
I think he's
Like,
doing
we do
something.
get to see...
He's doing something more impressive, which is
Yeah.
He comes as
projecting
a hologram
himself
and then lets everyone escape
through space, like planets away.
Yeah.
Throughout the entire galaxy. Like, isn't he supposed to be hidden in the
In,
farthest
like, literally
part
the
of the
most
galaxy?
hidden part of the galaxy where the first Jedi Temple
And he can
is.
still project himself, like, light years away. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think that... Okay, so if we're talking about favorite scenes, my favorite scene was probably the part where, like, they shot at him and then he just brushed it off.
Oh my god. That was awesome.
That part was great.
Yeah. I remember...
Either
like,
either that or Rey moving all the rocks out with the Force, like actually seeing what she's like capable of becoming with the Force. Those two parts were great for me to watch.
It's
The
a
movie's
good
just
movie for
filled
me
with
to
such
watch.
good scenes. Like there's
Yeah, I mean, because, you know, what I was kind of getting at was that Rey, her interactions with Luke and Luke's character is great. Rey kind of portraying that idea that his legend is important to people to him was great. And then Rey's struggle with Kylo Ren. Every scene with Rey and Kylo Ren in it is fantastic.
That is the best character development I've ever seen. Like in
just,
these movies and
yeah,
out of
just it's so interesting the way that they kind of conflict with each other because both of their ideas of what each other's perspective is different. So they do kind of have a cooperation with each other, but also a conflict with each other. And just the way that the Force connects them is really cool. So it's a really cool way for them to connect over even that with them being in different places.
my point of view, the Jedi.
Oh my god. I'm gonna make an edit of that now.
If you can pick it up on the mic.
Yeah, but just in terms of general plot lines, that's my favorite. And then the stuff with Finn and Rose, people complained about Rose. I think she's fine. She didn't contribute, too much. She didn't really need to be there. I feel like that could have been Poe. But I guess that kind of taken away from Poe's arc. I don't know what I would have done instead. But I feel like Rose is a harmless character. I don't know why people hate Rose.
I don't think... What I've heard is that they fixed her character.
In 9?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I don't think she takes away from the movie. I don't know if
she doesn't
add anything to it for me. But I don't
like after
I don't see
rewatching,
anything wrong with her character.
The only problem I had was the last scene with her when
Yeah.
she goes like, "You can't save the world." Bah!
Yeah.
I'm like,
it's like I'm glad Finn didn't sacrifice himself, but I did kind of think that
I
scene
kind
was-
of
yeah.
I don't know, like I don't know if I
And it
rather
does see that's the thing is that I don't know what I would change in that scenario. Like in even the whole casino plot. Like
I think she's the only reason the casino is not god awful.
yeah, because I don't
Because she
doesn't
from that planet
like
and she
not
doesn't
like
say it, but she is.
yeah, because we do talk about Finn and Rey and Poe and Kylo Ren. They're all really good characters. I feel like in comparison, Rose doesn't elevate the movie as much as they do, but I also feel like she's not a bad character. The thing that bothers me about the casino in general is that it doesn't feel like Star Wars to me.
Yeah.
It feels like it's just an Earth casino with some weird creatures walking around.
Kind of reminded me of Nowhere in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, I mean, I even feel like Guardians of the Galaxy, because it is more based in like an earthly idea of what space is than Star Wars is. I feel like that makes more sense for Guardians of the Galaxy. I feel like here it just, even though like for the rest of the plot it is kind of a necessary detour for them to make, I feel like just the world itself of Canto Bight just doesn't feel like Star Wars.
Yeah.
And just being there bothers me. Like when it's, especially because so much of the rest of the movie is so great that whenever like, I mean, the plotline doesn't even go on for that long, but when we do cut back there, I'm like, oh, we're here again, you know?
Yeah.
And I feel like that is probably, I mean, from what I've heard, that's the general consensus.
Yeah.
It doesn't ruin anything for me, but it
like,
does.
I kind of, like, part of me, didn't want to see Rose die, but it would have been cool if she was, like, for the rebellion, because her sister died, like, earlier. So for the rebellion, she was the one to go into the canon.
And that would have given Finn a little bit more motivation, I guess.
Yeah, it would have given Finn motivation. It would have completed her arc as a character. It's because, like, her sister died, and she would want to die for the same cause.
And then she teaches Finn that lesson about, you know, not fighting what we hate, saving what we love, and then he kind of takes that with him a little bit more. But I feel like where her character ends up is fine, and where Finn's character ends up is fine too. So I guess now that we've got the plot lines out of the way, now I'm going to talk about my favorite scene. So you said yours is brushing off the thing. Nick, I forget, what did you say yours was?
The like main point where like the lightsaber snaps in half.
Oh yeah, the ship collides.
Oh, that whole that whole like cutting back.
My favorite scene is Force Ghost Yoda, because
okay, like I said, I love Force Ghost Yoda, but like in Star Wars like history, I think that scene where the ship collides.
Yeah, that's one of the best moments of spectacle.
Yeah,
but I feel like, in terms of, like, even not just character moments for me, but moments overall, just seeing Yoda again was so magical.
And
I don't think he wasn't even a Force Ghost, because the Force Ghosts are all blue.
He was blue.
No, he was surrounded by blue. The actual, like, he was full Yoda. And
I think that's just, I'm pretty sure that's just the sequel's adaptation of that thing. I think it looks better.
I don't think he was a ghost.
I think maybe he was just
he was definitely
a stronger ghost.
I was talking to you about this
these.
the other day. Like, originally they were, like, in episode 5, they were going to have Obi-Wan come back as, like, a full figure person. Like, he was able to, like, pat Luke on the shoulder, but he was just a ghost. But in episode 8, Yoga comes in, he can hit, like, Luke on the head with his thing. He's like, haha. And, like, Luke's like, ow, because he was actually there, but he was still, like, a ghost. Like, he was disappearing again.
Well, maybe like there's different like strengths of the ghosts. Like you can actually
He's
interact.
more connected with the Force or something.
Like in episode, like they were
Yeah.
going to make it so Obi-Wan reached that strength to where he can come back.
He'd still be a Yoda would still be a ghost.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
it's still
he's
a ghost,
He's still
but
a
it's like-
ghost.
It's a ghost, but
because I
not
don't
a
like the
ghost.
idea of the Force just being able to resurrect anyone.
people.
No, it's not
And that's not what
resurrection,
happens
'cause
in
he
this movie,
disappears after.
But so the reason this scene is my favorite is just because, especially because of the way the prequels portrayed Yoda as, like, you know, he's supposed to be wise, but he keeps making bad decisions, and he's really boring. Whereas, like, in Empire Strikes Back and even Return of the Jedi a little bit, he's like funny.
And then episode 8,
and
he's like, you know, these books, they cause mistakes. Burn tree down.
Yeah, he literally, like, he feels so much more like he is classic Yoda. He is Yoda from Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, the Yoda that I personally love. And he's a puppet again, which is so great because CGI Yoda is just off-putting to me.
He's so much better. As
he
a
looks way
practical
more
character.
appealing as a puppet, and not even just because it looks better, but it just, I feel like just it fits his character more.
He's not a frustrating character like in the prequels. He's
and like, you know, even like, you know, after so long, he's still like teaching Luke lessons, and he's like, you know, like Yoda learned from Luke, and Luke is still learning from Yoda.
Yeah.
And like Luke is very much in Yoda's position in Empire Strikes Back, where it's like, you know, he's training someone with the Force, and they're getting frustrated because they have, like, you know, friends that they need to get back to. They have people that they need to help. And they have ideas about the Force that aren't necessarily true, and it's the teacher's job to kind of teach them teach them what the Force is actually supposed to be. I can't even really, like, explain, like, in depth just the way that the scene makes me feel. I feel like it just works on every.
It's just nice to see Yoda and Luke back together.
Yeah, it works on every level. I feel like it elevates one of the themes of the movie, which is failure and, like, learning from mistakes and, like, dealing with past failures. It also, like, you know, Yoda burning the books, like, because Luke was gonna burn them out of cynicism, but Yoda burns them because he's like, you know, you don't need them. Yeah. Like your connection with the Force isn't reliant on what these books have to say, you know? Just everything about it. It just every single time I watch that scene, I get the same feeling that I felt when I first saw it in the theater, you know?
Yeah.
It's just I feel like
back in the best way.
Out of every single scene in Star Wars, that one moment just sticks out to me, you know?
See, that's the thing about Last Jedi. It's not a perfect movie at all, but it has all these, like, best scenes. Like, you ask anyone, it's like, what's your favorite scene in Star Wars? They're not gonna go pull something from the prequels.
Yeah.
Unless it's Anakin.
Unless it's the Episode 3 fight, but
like, that's not one specific scene. That's the whole fight. If you were asking one scene, it's probably gonna come from The Last Jedi if they've watched it,
and if they don't despise it for no reason. Well, I mean, I guess they have their reasons, but they're kind of.
They're dumb.
This is a dark rabbit hole to go down. But a lot of them are pretty
thinking
dumb.
about it, I don't think we've ever done, like, we've reviewed every single other Star Wars movie up to now. We've never really talked about our favorite scenes from any of them.
Yeah.
I think that's just because there's so many good scenes.
Yeah,
in this
like
one.
it's just a testament to what
so well.
Yeah, it's just a testament to what Last Jedi is. It does take risks that not everyone responded to in the same way. But I just feel like what it does bring to the table is some of the best we've ever seen.
And that's what makes me excited for Episode 9.
Yeah. I really do hope that, even though I love Force Awakens and it's my favorite,
I hope we get more scenes like we did in The Last Jedi.
Yeah, I feel like Rise of Skywalker, I don't want to, like, go into it, like, with preset expectations, but I really do hope that it doesn't lose sight of what Last Jedi was trying to do, just because there was backlash to it. I don't want it to be that thing where, like, they change certain things or retcon certain decisions, like Rey's parents. Like, you know, Rey's parents don't need to be significant, but I feel like that if they were going to retcon something, that would be something that they would change just to please the people that hated Last Jedi.
Okay, so we've talked about everything Last Jedi, but one thing.
Hux.
No.
Because
I actually do want to.
We can talk about Hux. Yeah, talk about Hux first, and then I'll bring up the last.
Okay, yeah, because we did say we were gonna. Hux in this movie is so great.
He's
Snoke being like, "Come here, bitch."
Yeah,
character.
Snoke is great too, because I feel like he's way more threatening just because he's actually there and you see his power other than him just giving orders to other people.
Yeah.
But Hux, you know, like I was saying, the thing that makes me love his character is that he's obviously, like, kind of, like, out of his league. Like, he wants to be more commanding than he is, but he just can't do it. And I just love, like, the scene, like, just the little things with him where, like, he's, like, talking to Kylo Ren and Kylo Ren just doesn't even listen to him. He, like, slaps him against the wall.
No,
and
yeah,
he
was
over.
like, I'm going down there to talk to Luke, and he's like, don't get distracted. Our main goal is to, and he just throws him against the wall.
Yeah, and the other guy's like, right away, sir. And, like, the one scene when Finn and Rose are captured on the Star Destroyer, and Hux just walks up to Finn and just slaps him, and he just, like, has, like, this quick little smile. Like, oh god, I love that. He's such a funny character to me.
He's trying his best.
he's really out here trying his best.
He's trying.
Yeah. Okay. Wait. So what did you want to say, Nick?
Okay, so we didn't
Best
talk
comic
about
relief.
the fight after Snoke is killed. Rey and
Oh my
Kylo
God.
Ren versus the Knights.
That's
is
my
true.
favorite fight in
Crap,
any Star
yeah.
Wars movie.
That fight was
That
amazing.
so good. I like. It's above Anakin and Obi-Wan for me.
Oh yeah.
How did we not talk? I almost talked about it when we were talking
Like,
about
I-
episode
Because
7.
I feel like
And then
yeah.
I forgot to talk about it when we were doing this. No, that
I feel like we did bring up Last Jedi a lot when we were talking about the other movies.
no,
but-
because that like for me that's the highlight of the character development for like Rey and Kylo Ren's story together
Mhm.
is them like fighting against a common enemy is something that we
Yeah.
haven't seen in any other Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think Episode 8 might be above 3 for me now. I don't
yeah.
Maybe
it's,
it
like
should
starting
be.
to tie with 7 and 8 as
Yeah.
we're talking about it.
Because
it's
three, because
great.
I mean, 3 is really good too, but it's also really flawed. And Last Jedi is fantastic, but it does have its flaws too.
yeah,
Um,
but like it's even getting up to 7 for me. And
Yeah.
I'm just like,
and yeah, it's just because I feel like unless Rise of Skywalker completely blows it out of the water, because Rise of Skywalker does have a lot of pent up expectations to live up to.
That's just gonna bring more.
Yeah, I do feel like most of the most memorable moments of the sequel trilogy are gonna come from Last Jedi.
yeah.
so much.
Like I didn't
so
even
much
realize
Yeah.
almost all that stuff was in Last Jedi. I thought it came from Force Awakens because I like that movie so
Yeah,
much.
we kept bringing up Last Jedi when we
But
were talking
when-
about Force Awakens.
But when I watched Last Jedi, I'm like, everything good is in this movie, and everything bad is in this movie. Force Awakens was the average one.
Yeah, I mean,
I can see why the movie's
Yeah.
so divisive, but it's also so good.
yeah, it is hard for me too because I really do love everything this movie does, and I did say Force Awakens is my favorite. I do kind of feel like the highs of this movie do overshadow the highs of Force Awakens.
Yeah.
But I feel like Force Awakens is perfect for what it is. But I don't know.
I don't know
I was
anymore.
like, I remember after I watched this, my girlfriend asked me. She was like, I asked her. I was like, because we watched them together. I was like, how would you rank them? And she was like, I don't know. I need to think about it. And she was like, how would you rank them? And usually I'd be able to tell you right off the bat.
But
I
after
can't
watching
do it
8,
anymore.
we're just lost.
I can't do it anymore.
Why did we not like these as much as...
Yeah.
I think after watching 1, 2, and 3, we gained so much respect for 7 and 8.
Yeah.
Because they're so much,
Yeah.
they're so much better put together than
Yeah.
the other
There's so
movies
much
were.
that happens in these movies, and there's so many like different like pros and cons that you can't.
Mhm.
I can't discredit a whole movie when there was like that many great scenes in the movie just because it had some bad scenes.
Yeah.
Like it's so much easier to rank the scenes than just to rank the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. This movie is just something else. I mean, we didn't even really go in depth about the throne room scene, but that just
Like, you just have to mention it, and everyone
no,
knows
I mean-
what it is.
yeah. That
You have
fight
Rey.
is just, there's so many memorable moments.
Yeah, Rey and Kylo Ren killing Snoke and then fighting a whole like
Yeah.
I think there were 8 of them.
yeah.
Like
Yeah,
eight
and like
against two.
like
They're
Rey,
supposed
like,
to be
passing,
the most the
Yeah.
most powerful like guards that they have.
Yeah, and just like they do struggle against them, but like just all the parts with them like working together and stuff, like especially with like Rey throwing Kylo Ren the lightsaber and then he turns it on. He just turns it on and off again, but
Yeah.
it just goes through the guy's head.
That
was awesome.
I think the
that
most
is not
disappointing
a
part,
fighting move that is respected by
the most
the Jedi
disappointing
Council, I will
is
say.
that
an honorable weapon.
I wanted Ben to turn good.
Yeah, but I feel like it's almost better if he doesn't.
Yeah.
I kind of felt that when I watched the movie too for the first time, where I was like when he
Like, even
turns to
still
her
now, I just feel like
when he turns to her after the fight is over and you realize that he's still bad, you kind of go like, oh no, you were so close. But I also feel like that's really good because, like I was saying earlier, Snoke really only exists as a placeholder until Kylo Ren takes
Yeah.
over, and
and now that
it
Kylo
is kind
Ren
of
has this
interesting.
opportunity to just take everything, he's
Yeah.
just like, why would I go to the rebellion? They have nothing.
yeah, he has all that power, and that I feel like that's gonna make 9 really interesting because he is in charge of this gigantic like
was just
evil
like-
empire,
Yeah.
but he does still have conflict in him.
I feel like
That's
it's
just
so
like
much,
Anakin in Episode 3. He knows he'd get so much power because he's so much more powerful than everyone else, but he doesn't want to do what
Yeah.
he's doing.
Yeah,
it's so much better to have them have a way to see how well they can work together
Mhm.
against a common enemy. But if they were gonna make him good now, it would not
would
be as
episode 9 be?
yeah, it wouldn't be
Yeah,
as great.
it would
in
be
episode
Hux
9.
is in charge of the First Order.
He's
I would
getting
watch
slapped
that.
around.
Oh
by,
my god, that would be incredible. I would
they
I would
can't-
watch
They
that.
can't do
I
that
would,
because Captain
but it would
Phasma's
not
dead.
be-
If they're gonna make him good, I'm glad that they would wait till
Wait until 9 to do it. Just like Vader at the end of episode 6.
Exactly, yeah.
So-
But it made a lot more sense to me to just have them see how well they can work together as like opposite characters.
Yeah.
They worked amazing together. It was
Mhm.
perfect.
Yeah, and that's a dynamic that we've never seen before
Mhm.
in a Star Wars movie. So, I mean, okay, so let's think. Is there anything we haven't
I think
covered?
we got it all.
I'm pretty sure we got it all too. We covered all the
Because
bases.
we talked about Last Jedi during the review on 7.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
talked about Last Jedi for most of it. I feel like I said like 10 times like we're gonna come back to that.
We said
Um,
we already talked about.
oh, yeah,
BB-8
BB-8
and
in this movie.
R2's little
BB-8
talk,
Beating up all of the
Yeah.
guards, and then him taking the walker and being like, haha,
Yeah,
time
it's
to
like
die.
in Force Awakens he's just kind of like silly and like a little bit mischievous, but I feel like in this one they kind of go all out with it with like him like
He was
shooting.
in a walk.
He was in the walker. He was shooting the coins at the guards in the casino.
Oh my god!
Like he stole the pirate, or not the pirate ship. Well, I mean, I guess it is technically a space
Yeah.
pirate thing, but he stole that ship with the code breaker.
Yeah, you never really think about how much the like
BB-8's
those little
a
droids
smart
can
droid.
do
Yeah,
until they go and do it
Yeah.
and come
I'm
out of
pretty
a
sure Poe-
walker and start shooting at away.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure Pope programmed that droid to have some sort of feelings because no other droid has feelings.
R2,
Well,
C-3PO.
Yeah,
K2SO.
Dingus. What's wrong with you?
okay,
I've
yeah,
never
point.
I've never thought that a droid like that could have like expression until I saw him in the walker and his head was shaking and
Yeah.
it looked like
That's
he was
what I
just
love
screaming.
about like. I feel like BB-8 carries the spirit of R2 because R2 was like that in the originals where he didn't speak English but he did convey a lot of personality. I feel like the way that BB-8's designed with the way that his head can move around super freely kind of lends to that expression even more. And I feel like that's the reason I love him so much.
He's another character. He's a cute little guy.
He's
at
a
him
great,
go.
he's a great character
really
for me to
hope
watch.
this-
He's a great
I
character.
really
for me
hope to
watch.
see the trio of C-3PO, R2, and BB-8 destroy in Episode 9.
Not
The
be
re-
destroyed, right?
No,
Okay, good.
destroy themselves. Like, kill everyone in their path.
Oh, okay,
'Cause
yeah.
you know R2 and BB-8 are capable.
Oh, yeah.
We'll
R2
see.
in the prequels is insane.
Like,
like,
hello, battle droids. Time to catch you all on fire.
yeah, spill oil everywhere and then...
Damn, what kind of moves is that?
Yeah, he didn't have any of those in the originals. Okay, so, one more time. Anything we didn't cover in Last Jedi
I think
that you
we
want to
got
talk
it.
about?
Now I think we're good.
Okay. So,
I think
since
we should rate them.
we should rate them
and then
because...
end this. and
Yeah,
then-
because it would be weird to rate them after Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah,
so
we just talked about
because
it now.
because they're not going to be fresh in our minds like they are
Yeah.
now. So, who wants to go first?
I'll go first. Are we gonna let's do both movies at once this time.
All right.
I'm giving them both 9 out of 10.
Wow,
Wow, not even a
real
not even a
rating.
silly
I'm
rating.
just
Yeah.
I'm straight to the point. They're both amazing movies.
Yeah.
Like after rewatching, talking about it, it's like The Last Jedi's so much better than I remember it being.
Mhm.
Okay, Gabe.
I respect that. Yeah. And agree with it.
9 out of
But-
10.
For
Both movies.
guess we're- okay,
No, I
Chris.
mean I can't see rating them both the same thing. I don't think like
It's-
before I watched it now, I don't think I would have done that, but now I get to like actually look into it. There's
Mhm.
so many good scenes
Like
in
they're
8.
two completely different movies, but like when you put it all together, they're both like
They're
equally
both
good.
going to be
Yeah.
high ratings for me, so why
Yeah.
not 9 out of 8?
9 out of 8.
Wait, oh, wait, yeah.
9 out of BB-8.
Or 9 out of 10 BB8s.
We're continuing in the trend of like silly ratings.
We tried.
No, but I
So-
still got to rate it high. Like
Yeah.
it was great.
So, Force Awakens for me, it's perfect for what it is. It made me fall in love with Star Wars again. If I want to do silly ratings, I give it 5 Death Stars out of Starkiller Base.
I hate
If I
gonna
want to
go
give it a
for
real
myself.
rating, 5 out of 5. I loved it.
Damn, he gave it a full 100%.
Yeah, and you know what?
because that's his favorite. movie.
Yeah, you're right.
And like, technically speaking, I would give Last Jedi 4 out of 5 just because it does have he
some
does have
bad
its flaws,
yeah.
but I do feel like the highs of it do. Even if I am gonna give it that score, I
That's
feel
why
like
we give it out
I
of
still
10.
feel like it's worth saying that The Last Jedi's heights are some of the highest in the entire Star Wars series, and they reach higher than Force Awakens. They're just different. So I love them both, and I hope that when we watch Rise of Skywalker, that same response will be elicited.
When we come back with 9, we're gonna have full list of each of our favorites.
Are we?
We're gonna make full list 1 through 9. We'll do it.
All right. I'm down for that, and I mean that'll be in this episode.
That will be
if you're
in
listening
a couple
right now,
seconds. I
yeah.
guess.
If you're listening right now, this is about to start in a few seconds. But we're gonna see this. It'll be a couple days after we record this, and then we're gonna edit it all together. But you're about to hear our thoughts right now. So I mean, before we get into that, any last minute predictions you wanna?
Predictions
mentions-
for 9.
Let's
mentioned
not
before
talk
9?
about them. Let's not look stupid. Just end it.
Yeah,
Yeah. You know what? Better safe than sorry. Yeah, especially because it's not a separate video. If we did do predictions, then they're instantly
They're
gonna
instantly
get proven wrong.
wrong.
So, anyway, thank
We're
you for
gonna
listening
go
so far. Stay tuned.
Watch 9 now, and then
We'll be back in a
see
few
you later.
seconds.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm not even gonna say bye.
There's
because-
no real bye.
All right. Just keep listening. Rise of Skywalker thoughts.
Listen to
begin
this
now.
great music.
All right. So, we've all just at various times and days saw Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, and this complete episode is gonna be way longer than I thought it would be now. So
Yeah, I thought it
because
was much shorter when we when
Yeah.
we were checking off last time.
yeah, we normally naturally pace ourselves pretty well, but
We made
we
the
spent
first-
an hour and 20 minutes talking about just episodes 7 and 8.
More
So-
like we spent 40 minutes talking about episode 8 and 20 minutes talking about episode 7.
Yeah, so we've got a lot to talk about. This complete episode is going to be pretty long, but we'll probably release this as a separate part eventually anyway.
At the same time.
So, in order to try to keep this relatively brief, I have a bulleted list
It's not gonna work.
of things. I mean,
Sure.
we're gonna go off, I'm sure, about everything and jump around a lot.
I will.
But before we get into that, since this movie is relatively new, do you guys want to sort of give a non-spoiler, just general thoughts before we get into it?
It's my favorite Star Wars movie. It might be my favorite movie of all time. I'm not sure right now. I'm still trying to... I'm going to watch it a few more times before I make my final decision.
Yeah.
But I think it is my favorite Star Wars movie.
I am so just relieved after watching it. Like, all my dreams came true.
Yeah.
I
And-
guess. I mean,
Every
that's
question
it's
was
everything that I
answered.
want in a Star Wars movie.
Cool.
That's
I'm
the
like
end of-
waiting for you to
That's
like.
the end of that thought.
All right then. Yeah. See, I like Nick said, I need to see it like probably a couple more times and resonate on it a little bit more before I can really say like what my genuine final thoughts on it are. But as of right now, I was worried going into it that I wasn't gonna like it as much just because of what critics were
Yeah, me
saying, what
too.
people were complaining about it. I loved it. I don't really. I mean, obviously, there are things that you can pick apart. The movie does have problems. All the sequel movies have problems. Every Star Wars movie has problems.
I mean, every movie has problems.
But yeah,
Like, Gabe and I are big Pirates of the Caribbean people,
They have-
and
yeah.
have
I
some
was even gonna say this movie almost reminds me of Pirates of the Caribbean
Yeah, 'cause
3.
it
Oh,
was
you want to?
Because the forbidden movie that I'll never watch with you ever, even though I've seen it with you before. But it does remind me of that movie in the way that it is the finale to this trilogy, and it's like it's long and somewhat convoluted at times, but it is a satisfying end to that trilogy of movies. And if you're a fan, then I can't see how you wouldn't be satisfied by it.
And I feel like the critics were, like, people are always saying, oh, Star Wars is pandered by critics and all that stuff. I mean, in Disney just like pays critics, but no, if you've seen the Pirates of the Caribbean scores compared to the audience scores, they're just like Rise of Skywalker was.
It's funny to me
Super
that
low
this
percents, and then the audience is like, "Yo, this movie is the fucking bomb."
Yeah, it is really funny to me that the reaction initially to this, because I've seen a lot of mixed stuff on Twitter and stuff, but it is interesting that the initial reaction seems to be the exact opposite of The Last Jedi, where Last Jedi critic reviews were really high, audience score was really not really low. I mean, it could have been a lot worse, but it was.
I think it was lower.
It was
like
44.
That's
yeah,
pretty low.
that is pretty low,
That's
but because
pretty low.
people review bombed it because they didn't like it. This movie, those same people could have done the same thing, again, but the critic score is 53, and the audience score is like 86 as of right now. So,
Yeah.
it is very interesting to me the way that people are reacting to it.
So yeah, guys, Disney doesn't actually pay critics because they trash a lot of their movies.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I really love this movie, and there isn't really a whole lot else we can say about it without going into spoilers. So, if you're a Star Wars fan, if you consider yourself a Star Wars fan and you haven't seen this movie yet, please go see it. Do yourself a favor.
Yeah, we're
Like-
gonna talk
Like
a lot
I was
about
talking with other
everything.
friends earlier, this movie written out sounds like garbage, but once you
Yeah.
see it yourself, like you watch the
In the
movie
context
and
of
you
it,
enjoy
it's really like
it's an amazing film.
Yeah.
They do it so
But if you
right.
just read the script, like a lot of people did, they spoiled themselves. They're like, "This is garbage."
well, not even that. Like, just people leaked like stuff that was gonna happen in it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then
So-
like people were like, "That's so stupid," but then they watched the movie. Like our friend Tristan, he didn't like the idea of the script, but when he saw
Name
the movie,
drop.
he's like, "This is amazing."
Yeah.
He'll appreciate that.
yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
put his face on the little box.
Yeah, well, like a link to his Instagram or something, just in
Just for
like,
two,
scrunched up
for
in
the
the box.
for the second that we say his name.
Yeah. All right, so please go watch this movie. Now let's get into full-on spoiler discussion with all our thoughts. So, like I said earlier, in order to try to keep this, I mean, we're not going to rush through this, but in order to try to keep it relatively
We
brief,
have
so that this
talking
episode
points.
isn't forever, we have a talking point, and
We're not as unstable right now.
yeah, we're probably not going to be able to stick to this too solidly. But my first point and a couple points, I guess, would be because they kind of go hand in hand, is the dynamic between the three leads, Rey, Finn, and Poe,
Yeah.
and the humor of the movie.
It was amazing.
I thought, because like we said earlier in this review, it is weird that at the end of The Last Jedi, Poe goes up to Rey, he's like, "Hey, I'm Poe," and we're like,
What?
this is the first time they're meeting in this trilogy so far. But now they're all together. This takes place a year after Last Jedi, I think.
2 years.
So
I thought.
I thought it was 2 years too. I read something that said it was one.
Oh.
I
mean, that
don't know.
makes
It,
sense.
it doesn't really
'Cause
matter.
Rey's still training.
Yeah.
It's a little while and they know each other.
Yeah. So they're all friends now. They all have like a sense of camaraderie. They all
I
like
think we should start character by character.
yeah.
Let's start
So-
with Finn.
Yeah. So, Finn in this movie, I feel like they don't. Well,
I feel like he's the comedic relief aspect of the group. Like
He's
him and
also-
C-3PO are like
yeah,
comedic relief.
yeah,
But he's been taking
mean-
some more charge in this movie.
Yeah.
Like he was up on the he's like kind of fighting back with Poe at some moments when like
hmm
you know he gets emotional and wants everyone to
yeah.
be safe.
I feel like him and Poe especially have like some pretty great moments, just because this is something I'll get into later. But even though the three of them are together a lot, Rey a lot of the time like senses something like with the Force and like goes off to do something. So a lot of times it's Finn and Poe together. Both of them I feel like had a really good dynamic. Something interesting that they do with Finn is that, I mean, you know, they cover a little bit his stormtrooper past. You know, there's a new character in here that we meet that also comes from a group of defected stormtroopers, and that kind of introduces us to the concept that Finn is Force sensitive.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I do really like this because a reveal we'll talk about later. But one of the things that I did like about this trilogy so far was the idea that anyone can be Force sensitive.
Yeah.
It's more mystical.
And I think
But-
there was also, like, I heard someone telling me how only Jedis can use lightsabers. Like,
it's a Jedi's weapon.
it's a Jedi's weapon.
Typically.
And, like,
Anyone can use
Finn
it. but-
used it.
I mean,
Yeah.
But, like,
she gave it to Finn when they were in the tunnels. To
Like,
hold.
she knew
Oh,
he
yeah.
had some sort of force, like, sensitivity. But a lot of people were like, he's not a Jedi. He can't use that.
Mhm.
I mean, Rey wasn't a Jedi, but she was force sensitive. So,
Mhm.
like, maybe they knew Finn was force sensitive this entire time. But they just weren't going to tell us.
I mean, that's possible. I feel like
because
that's just.
it was a better way to convey it by showing us through his
Mhm.
emotions
Maybe
than, like,
just-
making him a Jedi. Because, like, that wasn't his destiny.
It could just be like it takes the Force to turn it on, because like the crystal inside is the power
Well, I
comes
think
from the Force,
anyone
doesn't it?
can. I think anyone can turn on and technically use a lightsaber. It's the weapon of the Jedi, so the Jedi are the one that master using it.
Is it also?
but-
Does it take Force to make it? Maybe.
Well, it's typically like making a lightsaber is sort of like a rite of passage for a Jedi.
yeah.
I think
So-
Finn's force sensitiveness is going to be the one thing that's never explained to us ever.
Well, I mean, assuming that we're not gonna get
Get another trilogy.
another. I mean, pretty
I don't-
much nothing from this movie that was left off
Yeah.
is gonna get explained unless they have some sort of book or.
Like the love story between Finn and Rey.
Oh yeah, that's sad. Like
Yeah.
that is like
I want to tell you something.
yeah.
It's like, come on, Disney made Frozen 2 this year, and they waited the entire movie for...
Yeah, I
First
was
off-
worried that was going to be the same in this movie. I was worried that Finn's role, because there is a lot of moments where like he senses that Rey is in danger and he wants to go help her.
Yeah.
But I thought I thought that his role was basically going to be reduced to like he wants to tell Rey that he's in love with her, but he just can't do
Just
it and he can't
can't.
find the
Yeah,
right
I'm
moment. I
happy
was like,
that
"Oh
wasn't-
god."
I'm happy that wasn't the
Yeah.
goal.
No,
Yeah. No, he's really good on his own. Poe is really good on his own.
I love
Um,
Poe. He was probably my favorite character in this movie.
Really?
Like...
I
you
mean,
know-
I've always really loved Poe.
Like,
But-
his character arcs. Episode 7, he's this badass pilot. He's praised by everyone, praised by Leia.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 8, like, everyone's telling him, no, just stop,
Yeah, be patient.
think, be patient.
Yeah.
And then episode 9, he realizes he's nothing like Leia. He's not patient.
Yeah.
And, like, he's gonna get everyone killed. And so in the end of the movie, when he realizes, he thinks he made a mistake when he didn't, he's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, guys. But when the whole, like, rebellion came behind him, he just, like,
Yeah.
he grew in power. He's just like, guys, we got this. We're gonna win.
Yeah.
And like, I loved his arc, and I think by far he's my favorite character in all of Star Wars.
Really?
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I
Because like I told you the other day, like my favorite characters come from the sequels, and like
Mhm.
through 6, 7, and 8, Poe was my favorite, and 9, his character arc really made him like attached to me.
Yeah.
Like he was kind of an asshole in the beginning of 9, and
Yeah.
I liked that because it was part of his character.
see
and
that.
helped him grow.
I think it's also cool too. You know, a lot of this movie is about him coming into his own as a leader, and there's the one scene between him and Finn where they're fighting over whether to go get Rey or not.
And then he
and-
says,
and he said-
"You're
he
not
said-
Leia."
Yeah, and
I was
then
like,
he says that
shit.
well he says, you know, I'm
He's
not
like,
Leia,
yeah.
and then Finn says that's for damn sure.
Yeah.
And, I'm
And I was like, oh damn.
I thought they
But-
were gonna fight.
See that's
Yeah.
what I'm talking about. Like Finn.
our
Poe's
dads are
dynamic.
fighting. But yeah, I mean, you know, in the end, you know, him coming into his own, he is very much not the same type of leader that Leia is, but he is still
He's
a good leader by the end of it.
yeah.
And I really like that. So I guess now let's talk about Rey. I really liked. I got sort of the same feeling from Rey in this movie that I got from Luke in Return of the Jedi, where we've been away for a little bit, and she's like, even though she's not a master like Jedi yet, you know, she still has a little bit of a ways to go. She's been training and she is becoming stronger with the Force. So we get to see her, we get to see her more effortlessly use some of her skills in this movie,
Like the healing.
like the effortless like Jedi mind tricks with the
Oh, yeah, yeah,
stormtroopers and like
Almost forgot about that.
yeah.
It happened so fast.
yeah, and literally the first scene we see of her is she's in the forest and she's like meditating and she's floating off the ground and all the stones are circling around her. Like that was such a cool introduction for me.
The whole training scene in the beginning was just so cool.
Oh yeah, when she goes through the Jedi training course.
I didn't I didn't think they were gonna allude back to it with Luke and Leia,
Yeah.
But that was amazing.
Dude, that CGI shot of Luke and Leia was amazing. Going back to like the end of episode 6 when they were training.
And it made so much sense.
Oh,
They've been.
man.
I am glad that because in this movie it's implied that Leia has been training Rey.
Yeah.
With the Force, and before especially after Last Jedi when she kind of just uses the Force to pull herself back to the ship.
She's not a Jedi.
Yeah, everyone. She hasn't had any training or anything. This movie reveals to us that she has, and that might have been something they wrote in just to kind of correct that. Like, yeah, it is weird that she didn't have any training.
But you're right.
But not even just for that scene, but just in general, because she does realize she is a Skywalker. She is Force sensitive.
J.J. Abrams,
so
that was his intention in the 7th movie, that she had some sort of Force training, but wasn't gonna reveal it because, in 9, she gave up being a Jedi because she had the kid, and she didn't want to have all that stress on her.
Yeah, and I also I am glad that they established that she had Force training in the past or Jedi training with Luke. But I'm also glad because you said the CGI, the young versions of them look good. Because they have obviously been working on this de-aging tech for a long time. Mm-hmm. I am glad that it's just a glimpse of the past and not a whole scene, because if they showed them talking to each other, I would have you would have been it would have taken you out of it.
Tiny scene.
You would have been able to tell.
It was just their faces, and it was kind of covered with the mask.
Yeah,
so it worked.
Yeah, if they kept talking, it'd be like Tarkin in Rogue One, where you look at it at first, you're like, oh, that looks really good, and then the more he's on screen and the more he talks, you're like, ugh.
It's like you go to one of the wax museums and see Obama, and you're like, yeah, that's not Obama.
See Obama.
Yeah. But I'm glad that they established that, and I think it's cool that she trained Rey. I also this is kind of, I need to keep track of my points because this is kind of jumping around a little bit. I do really like Rey's dynamic with Kylo Ren in this movie.
Oh,
that was one of the best parts of Episode 8, and I feel like they bring it further here.
That's my favorite part of the whole trilogy is their.
Well, in 7 they were going to kill each other.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know, yeah. Well, it wasn't as much in 9. It was so 8 and 9.
Better.
It got
well, because by connecting them through the Force, they do initially just exclusively hate each other, but then they kind of
they start to understand each other.
After Rey stabs Kylo Ren, she's like, "Oh shit, Leia didn't want me to do that."
Yeah,
yeah.
And that's sort of because a lot of this movie is Kylo Ren trying to bring Rey to the dark side and Rey resisting it.
Yeah.
So.
And then Leia doing her Force thing, bringing Ben to the light. That was super cool to me.
Yeah.
That was her goal.
Yeah.
And it made it work because Carrie Fisher's not alive, so they couldn't do a lot with her.
I think,
but they did a ton with her.
Yeah. She was gonna
Leia in general, I feel like her role in this is impressive because she, Carrie Fisher obviously passed away before filming her scenes for this movie, so her performance in this movie is exclusively archive footage they have of her that they wrote scenes around, and I feel like in some cases you can tell, but it's really pretty much the best they could do, and I'm impressed with what they were able to do with it.
If I didn't know anything about that, I would have thought it was just the actor reading the script for this movie.
Yeah, and the only scene I feel where it is noticeable is the one scene where Leia just walks into the ship and Maz Kanata tells R2 she knows what has to be done. She needs to use the last of her energy. I'm they probably would have handled that differently if they had her available to portray the character. I don't know if they would have
killed her in 9 if she was actually there.
I think I think it works for the story, so I feel
it works. I don't know if
I feel regardless, it was good closure for her.
I was very satisfied.
Without Leia passing, he wouldn't have become the leader he was.
In the end, seeing Leia and Luke just together watching Rey, that, I want that moment.
That was satisfying. And also, her, Ben at the end of this movie, or Kylo Ren, is obviously redeemed. He embraces his Ben Solo, I guess, I don't really know what you would call it. He just goes back to using the name Ben Solo. He turns to the light side. I did really like, his sacrifice at the end of the movie. Afterwards, he fades away and Leia fades away with him, which I thought was really nice because that's kind of their destinies fulfilled. Her destiny was
to save.
Yeah, both of their destinies were basically to like end. I don't really.
As a Jedi.
There's a smarter way to say it.
Yeah.
Essentially, end the war, bring balance, bring peace. I see it more as like specifically like Leia was supposed to redeem him, and he was supposed to end it all. Because he is a Skywalker.
What I find interesting is back in the prequels in Episode 1, they find Anakin. They're like, he's the chosen one because he has all this Force power. Mm-hmm. And then, like, throughout the Skywalker history, it's never a Skywalker who's the chosen one. It's actually a Palpatine. Which, if we're gonna keep talking about Rey, it's time to talk about who she really is.
Oh yeah.
She is a Palpatine.
And then I mean, in order to even talk about Rey's origins, we need to talk about Palpatine in this movie. Which
he's back.
It was really good. I was worried because I do still kind of feel like it's almost a little bit of a retcon. Like, you know, J.J. Abrams, I don't know how much truth there is in him saying, like, oh, bringing back Palpatine was the plan from the beginning.
I honestly feel like it was, because even in George Lucas's version of the sequels, Palpatine lived all 9.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that.
I think so. I don't know.
Because I've read about George Lucas's plans for the sequels, and I didn't see anything about Palpatine.
I feel like Palpatine was meant to be in all 9. I don't know for sure. We're gonna have to fact check that later.
But I do, even despite the fact whether or not it's a retcon, I do feel like it works in this movie. What was I gonna say? I was like, because I'm going back and forth between there's a problem I have with it, and then there's also the good stuff. The problem I have with it is that it makes Snoke less threatening in retrospect.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, at the very beginning of this movie, we learned that Snoke was essentially not even just like it's serving Palpatine, was like a genetic, like, I guess a clone or something created by Palpatine in order to...
Chris, according to this article, it was originally George Lucas's idea to bring Palpatine back.
Oh, it was also George Lucas's idea to have Luke isolated on an island. So
I feel like JJ kind of like started to deviate from that, but went like went back to do it.
Certain ideas were carried over.
I think
I think JJ was trying to respect George Lucas as much as possible, but also not make it terrible.
Yeah. I think maybe if he was planning from the beginning to follow directly in what George Lucas was gonna do, he was gonna have more hints towards Palpatine.
Yeah.
Throughout
if
the
he
first
had
two.
If he had directed Last Jedi, he probably would have put some teases in there for Palpatine.
Yeah.
Sort of like, you know, like in Empire Strikes Back, you see Vader getting the suit put on, so you get a little glimpse of him outside of the suit. Yeah. But like you know, just something like Snoke reporting to a higher power or something.
I'm kind of a little happy we didn't get anything about Palpatine in Episode 8.
Yeah.
It was a really good surprise to hear about it in a trailer.
Wasn't there like one scene in one of the movies where you heard his laugh or something like that?
I think that was just at the end of the trailer.
It was a trailer.
Oh, okay.
But so like I said, the problem I have with it, because Snoke, I feel like I've always enjoyed him as a character similar to the role the Emperor played in the original trilogy, where we don't really need to know his backstory and he just kind of exists for Kylo Ren to overtake. And I do like he is, especially in Episode 8, he's like threatening and like super powerful.
I feel like
just
the
to know
Emperor
that he was like
created Snoke to be his body that he can move around.
I mean, the Snoke didn't really do much.
I think the
besides
Snoke is just a clone
actions.
of the Emperor,
like,
but like a failed clone.
I don't think it's a clone. I think like he created a puppet.
Chamber.
Yeah. Well, I mean that is essentially, you know, now that we know the full story, that's just kind of a thing where I'm like, I would have even liked it better if Snoke was just a guy working for the Emperor, instead of just like a genetic creation that the Emperor had planned all along.
I would have liked if it was that little boy.
Stop.
Wait, which one?
The one that was like Master Skywalker.
Oh yeah, there's too many of them.
There's too many of them.
Oh my god, that would have been amazing. But the good thing, the thing that kind of got me on board with Palpatine being back, because I was like, how are they going to explain him coming back to life? Because he freaking fell down this giant hole in the Death Star and blew up.
Like I told you before we watched the movie, they explained it in Episode 3, and then he said that same exact line in Episode 9.
Yeah, well, see, that's what I'm saying, is that alone was enough to justify it for me, where, you know, Kylo Ren goes up to him and he's like, "I'll kill you," and he says, "I've been dead before," and then he says, "The dark side is a path to many abilities some consider to be unnatural," and you know, it might not make sense if like people watching this haven't seen episode 3 or something, but
like they should.
You know,
if you're gonna watch,
yeah,
episode
if you're
9,
gonna
why
watch
didn't
the
you watch 1
conclusion,
through 8?
but that because I had to explain it to my girlfriend after this, that's where that came from, and that's why I was excited over it. But you know, the tragedy of Darth Plagueis that he tells Anakin in episode 3 is about his master learning to use the Force to give life to like dying or dead things, in order to save the ones that he loved.
But that's a Jedi trait.
Well, he says it's like, you know, it's something you can do as if you're powerful enough with the dark side.
Yeah, but we learned that that's a Jedi trait.
Well, maybe the Jedi
Force
can
healing in
heal other
general
people.
is an idea that they use a lot in this movie. But I feel like that certain thing, like, because Palpatine is basically undead for most of this movie, and
think-
that sort of resurrection is what he's talking about in the tragedy of Darth Plagueis.
Yeah,
So-
the Jedi I think have like healing properties for others, and
The
Yeah.
Force
the
It's
Sith,
it's more restorative.
the Sith
whereas-
like try to restore themselves.
What I
instead of
respect
heal
so
others.
much about Force healing is the fact that they did it in the Mandalorian episode that had a teaser attached to it about
Yeah.
the Rise of Skywalker.
That was pretty smart.
was
I mean,
smart.
not everyone watches The Mandalorian, but I
But you
do
should.
think they establish it well in this movie in a simple way with
Yeah.
the snake.
but
I
with
do
them-
think it's like, because that is one of the things where you feel like fans that were mad about stuff in The Last Jedi would be like, "Oh, you couldn't do that with the Force before."
I
But
know,
like
they
just allowed
they
time.
put it in the Mandalorian, which is the series that every Star Wars fan loves. Like
Mhm.
anyone who's watched it has nothing bad to say about it.
Yeah.
So they did it in the Mandalorian. Then Rise of Skywalker came out, and they're like, "Okay, we did it there. It
Mhm.
should be okay here."
They're just
And I thought that
testing
was so
things in the
smart.
Mandalorian.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought when she used it. I was like, "Oh, that's like The Mandalorian," because
Well, I mean, that's kind of the first time we saw that,
yeah.
and it's weird that it's not like a
That's
thing
why they released the
before, and now
episode
that
2
they
days
have
before.
it in, they're gonna use it like they used it like 4 times in this movie or 3
Mhm.
times.
Yeah, I think the 3 major parts are the snake, and then when
On
Rey
Kylo
heals
Ren,
Kylo after
and then
stabbing
when-
him,
yeah.
and then the end when Kylo saves Rey.
Yeah,
Um,
transferred all.
well, I
his
mean, there's
life
also the
force.
bit where like it's not really healing, but like Palpatine like steals their life force.
Yeah.
When
See,
they're
I
trying
think
to fight
that's
him.
that's what the
Yeah.
Sith's version of healing is
Yeah.
they can take others like
Yeah,
life
yeah.
for their own.
And so aside from enjoying the justification of Palpatine's return, he's terrifying in this movie.
yes.
Like he's like weird and creepy in Return of the Jedi, and he starts to get to the more threatening part in the prequels. He's like because the Sith in this movie, you basically, other than like based on what we're told before, we can basically assume the Sith are just basically evil Jedi. They're portrayed as like a death cult in this movie, and the setting is really creepy, and there's giant statues of him everywhere, and he has tons
It's
of
the
followers,
environment.
and there's like a ritual of him like when Rey like strikes him down, he's gonna like possess her or something. It's really creepy, and like just every scene that he's in, just the way that he's lit and the way that he talks and the amount of like the amount he commands every scene
The
that
way
he's
that
in.
he talks, I'm so happy they got the actor back from
Oh
episode
yeah,
3.
no one else could play the Emperor
No.
other than Ian
That is-
McDiarmid.
Him, like that's the Emperor.
Yeah, but
like because of the Emperor's return and everything going on in this movie, this is the first time watching like a Star Wars movie that I felt nervous the entire time.
I was
Like
so
even
that was
watching
uneasy.
Mandalorian, like not wanting Baby Yoda to die.
Mhm.
Like I don't feel that nervous because they won't kill a fucking baby. But like watching,
you don't know that.
watching,
You don't know.
I don't know. They might
It's
next
Star
episode.
Wars.
But Star Wars, like watching Star Wars 9, I was nervous the entire way through. I was like, it was insane. I was just like paying attention because I'm like, someone could die any second. Like even
Yeah.
when they were gonna they killed Chewbacca with
I
Oh,
thought
yeah.
it was real. I thought, oh,
like I thought he was
crap, man.
actually dead.
This is the last.
See, I
one.
knew he wasn't dead, but it's only because of I remembered the scene in the trailer
Yeah.
where he's flying with Lando.
But like if you
That's
go
cheating.
and watch the movie, you'll feel like, oh shit, did they just kill
Yeah,
Chewie?
even though I knew that, I was still like, oh shit. But that wasn't even like, and like even like other than just the Emperor talking, like the scene at the end where they're trying to fight him, they like fight off his guards like
Not
with
enough.
relative ease. But then as soon as they turn to him and try to fight him, he's just like throwing them around with the Force. Like he's able to instantly stop them and steal their life force and everything. He's like, it's like actually like
What it should
the first.
be.
It's like even before I didn't feel like the Emperor, like even though he was super powerful, it was pretty much an equal fight on both sides. Here you feel like there's basically nothing that you could do to stop him.
Like even
Other
when
than
he takes
what
their life
happens, which we'll
forces
talk
and then
about.
goes
But
boom to all the ships, and I'm like, no, they're gonna kill everyone. What
Yeah.
the hell
Yeah.
is happening? Like I actually thought they were gonna end Star Wars with like the Emperor winning, and I was like,
I
what?
knew they wouldn't do that.
It's just
but-
I mean, it felt like that, but you knew
Infinity
they wouldn't.
War.
yeah, I mean, it does kind of feel like even though you figure it's the end of the saga, they have to have a happy ending. That there is that thing where like the hopelessness goes on for long enough where you're like, oh shit, like what's gonna happen?
Yeah. You know what? Back when we were talking about how Pirates of the Caribbean 2, Pirates of the Caribbean 3, Infinity War, Endgame, Star Wars 8 and 9 all have the same storyline.
How?
At the end of Star Wars 8,
Disney.
they kill most of the Resistance.
Mm-hmm.
You said Disney, I like that.
Yeah, they're all Disney.
And
like,
then at the beginning of Star Wars 9, they have some people built up again. And at the end of Star Wars 9, they have everyone helping them, and they win.
yeah.
Just like
That's
Avengers.
another thing that I was gonna say was kind of similar to Pirates 3 was that there's the giant like fleet of ships at
Yeah.
the end.
Mhm.
Like they have a giant fleet at the end, and
Yeah.
just like Infinity War, they lose all their people, and then at the end of Endgame, everyone's back and
Yeah,
fighting.
yeah.
I mean, hey, if it ain't broke,
That's the way to
it
end a
works.
Disney saga.
that's their formula.
Yeah.
It seems to please people.
Mhm.
I mean, I really like that way.
I
Even
like all
Crisis
these
on
endings.
Infinite Earths is doing the same thing. So
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
true. But I wouldn't know about that.
I'll
talk
haven't
about
caught
it.
up.
I'll talk about
Talk
it when
about
it
it,
ends.
yeah.
So like next month.
Yeah,
I'll catch up and then
Um,
talk about it a bit.
and I probably won't watch it, but it's still pretty cool that it's a thing.
But Star
um,
Wars.
Yeah.
Back
so
to Star
so
Wars.
we've talked about Palpatine. Now let's talk about the reveal that Rey is Palpatine's granddaughter.
I saw it coming.
So
I did not see that. I knew
I
they were gonna.
I was under the impression going into it that they were gonna make Rey related to someone
like
important.
something.
Yeah.
Which is kind of sad because it's just kind of the Star Wars thing now, where like
Bloodline.
like even if it's supposed to be a plot twist, you kind of see it coming. I do think
I knew
even though it's
right
like
at that moment when Palpatine told Ben, "I know who she is," in that cut, I knew I was like Rey Palpatine.
see, I kind of thought that at first. I kind of I was like, oh, maybe it's that, maybe it's something else. The moment I kind of figured she would be related to Palpatine was when they're fighting over the ship with the Force, and she uses the Force lightning.
Yeah,
I
that
was like, oh shit,
Oh, well, that's
she's
definitely
the fucking
got-
Palpatine.
I was thinking it like at the beginning when he reveals like I know who she really is, and
Mhm.
Kylo Ren was like, who is she? And then he got that like
The
giant
smile, yeah.
I'm like, that's kind of weird. Why would he know
Hey,
so
Chris.
much?
Mm.
That's what I just said, right?
I mean, a
I mean,
little
I
bit,
don't know.
like, but
I went
I mean,
more
yeah.
depth, so I'm better.
Ooh, there's gonna be a fight. But yeah, so even though the reveal itself wasn't all that shocking, I do think in the grand scheme of things, I feel like if they were gonna make her related to someone, because I'm still of the opinion that she could have just been no one and it would have been fine. And even the end of this movie where she becomes like basically an honorary Skywalker probably would have been the same.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't rely on her being related to anyone else and renouncing her family name or whatever. But
I think
I-
I was fine that it was Palpatine just because she was so powerful,
Yeah.
and like it was revealed she had parents
Yeah.
in Episode 7.
it gives a similar sort of conflict to Luke being related to Darth Vader, where it's like he's scared of the dark power in him because he's related to like one of the most powerful like
Yeah.
dark
Sith
side
Lords,
users.
yeah.
And also I feel like for this trilogy especially, I feel like it works because the main villain, Kylo Ren, is the descendant of the heroes from the last trilogy, and then we find out in this one that the main hero was the descendant of the villain.
Yeah.
And they both kind of go against their role to some degree. So I like, even though that was a retcon that I was afraid was going to happen, I still liked how they handled it in the end. So I was glad, because I was worried they were gonna, even if they were gonna do something like that, I was worried that it was just gonna be like, oh, she's related, it's not important, just people complained that she wasn't important, so we made her important for no reason.
No, I think from the beginning it was planned that she was the daughter of Palpatine. Just because in Episode 7, when she's fighting Rey, she does the Palpatine jab.
Yeah, see, I still don't buy that that's a tease for her being related to Palpatine.
We're gonna have to watch that after
The lightning is way better than that.
I mean,
yeah.
But there was only one Star Wars character.
Like, I don't think anyone watched that originally and was like, oh, that's a Palpatine move.
That's
like,
why I heard of it, because
is
when I
she
was watching
Palpatine?
when I was watching reviews of Episode 7, people were always like, Rey's doing the jab just like Palpatine did. Like, that's why people started thinking that in the first place.
And then JJ saw that, and he's like, oh, that could work,
True.
actually.
Yeah, he's just, J.J. Abrams is just reading Reddit. like
J.J. Abrams.
all right, put that in there, put that in there.
Yeah, not that. Yeah, swipe right on that one, yeah.
Yeah. I want to talk about a couple things. First off, I want to go back to Kylo Ren for a second, because I am a fan of his redemption. We've talked a little bit about his redemption in this movie. I want to go a little bit more in depth on him, because he really stuck out to me in this movie. I do kind of wish that they spent more time on him, just because he is, you know, in a movie called The Rise of Skywalker, he is the one that is an actual descendant of the Skywalkers. So it is weird that he is sort of a side character in this movie, but I still really liked his redemption arc, and especially because, you know, at the end of Episode 8, he becomes the Supreme Leader after killing Snoke. And at the beginning of this movie, you definitely get a sense of how, like, threatening he actually is. Because, you know, the movie, literally the first scene of the movie is him just killing a ton of people to get the Sith Wayfinder to find Palpatine. But even after that, you know, he doesn't plan to join Palpatine. He plans to turn Rey to the dark side and join up against them anyway. Which is funny because that's what happens anyway, but just on a different side. But
yeah.
I really like Kylo Ren in this movie before he turns 2, because I feel like once he has his mask put back together, he's so commanding, and like his, like, even like when he was in the mask in The Force Awakens, you kind of get the sense that he's not, like, you know, he is sort of like still a little bit timid because of his conflict. But he's very commanding in this movie, and I feel like he came across as way more threatening than he did in The Force Awakens.
Guys, I think we know Chris's favorite sequel character.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's also
BB-8.
like that part where like Kylo Ren and Rey were fighting by the water and the Death Star.
Oh yeah, the Death
rubble.
Star wreckage.
And like he was tiring her out and overpowering her.
Yeah.
I was like, that's pretty like powerful stuff right there.
If it wasn't for Leia interfering, he probably would have killed her.
I don't think he would have killed her.
He wanted to turn her to the dark side, but like, you know,
but he would have.
She would have been helpless against him.
He would have taken her lightsaber and done something. Kylo Ren with a blue lightsaber.
That was
so satisfying.
That gave me like giant Anakin Obi-Wan vibes when those two were fighting side by side with
oh my god, can I talk about when she made it disappear behind her and he just pulled it out?
Oh, that was awesome.
Amazing.
The whole last fight of this movie, well, I guess, you know, not to distract from talking about what we were talking about, that whole last fight is so cool with between this is kind of leading into the next thing I want to talk about, but the just the way that last fight scene plays out and the way they've used the Force is really cool to like pass the lightsaber between them.
Yeah, that
was a really satisfying moment for his arc.
That's a new thing. Like,
I think even after like the lightsaber parts, like, are we gonna talk about the ending now? Fight scene.
Well, I want to finish talking about first Kylo Ren, because like I said, he is very threatening, and he is like trying to manipulate Rey. But, you know, Leia interfering kind of kicks off his transition back to the light, because Rey stabs him once he lets his guard down. But like the combination of Leia reaching out to him, Rey
healing him,
and then his memory of Han Solo, which was awesome.
That was Harrison Ford returning on
I did
Yeah,
not
I
actually
was
think
so-
that was gonna
I
happen.
really wanted Harrison Ford to have a cameo, but I was like, they probably won't, because not only does Harrison Ford not really want to do it anymore, but he's not connected to the Force in any way. So
But they
it would be
couldn't-
really weird if he had a Force ghost
They
or
couldn't
something.
end it without him.
But yeah, I was so glad that he was there, and I'm glad, like, even if it was kind of like, you know, like, really, like, that's like, it's just like a memory, like, but like, you know, it's kind of a weird way to explain it, but I don't really care because
fine.
I'm glad that he's there.
It's it mirrors the like moment that he killed him.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it turns out to be exactly what you wanted to happen.
At the end of Force
Yeah.
Awakens, he
Yeah.
does the
Where
opposite. He gets rid of his lightsaber.
Yeah, he pulls the lightsaber out
Yeah.
and then throws it away and smiles
Yeah.
as dad.
I thought that was really satisfying. It was really satisfying to see Harrison Ford on screen again in general,
Mhm.
especially because I had no idea he was going to be there. But
I
just
said,
that scene
like-
as the final nail in the coffin for Kylo Ren's transition back was perfect for me.
And so that scene leads right into Luke, Force Ghost.
Oh yeah.
Catching the
So-
lightsaber.
So that kind of leads into the next general point I wanted to talk about, which I feel like people are saying that some of the things in this movie are blatant retcons of The Last Jedi. I don't feel that way. I feel like it builds off of what The Last Jedi set up really well.
Yeah.
One of the things, especially was, and we talked about this a little bit too, was the way that the Force connects Rey and Kylo Ren. Because before it was Snoke / the Emperor doing it. Now they're just kind of, Kylo Ren can pretty much do it. He can pretty much bridge their minds. I really like the way they did it in Episode 8, where it was just kind of, you know, it cuts back and forth between them, and there's a little bit of, like, a connection between their physical environments. Here they go all out with it, where, like, the camera's, like, swirling around them,
And
and
they can
as it goes
fight each
behind them,
other.
it changes locations, and, like, they actually, like, have more physical interaction with each other's environments, and, like, you know, Kylo Ren uses that to figure out where Rey is when she's on the Star Destroyer, and, like, Rey uses it to hand him the lightsaber in the last fight.
And I feel like that's, like, people will say, oh, you can't create new Force stuff, but these two are the strongest Force users in all of Star Wars history.
Yeah.
So, like, it's completely possible for them to do anything.
Yeah. And I always thought that was a cool ability in The Last Jedi. So I was really excited to see them take it further and, like, go crazy with it in this movie.
Yeah,
So happy with how they like fixed the Force basically. I mean, like, you know, they made it a more, you know, mystical thing.
Oh
than
yeah,
just
contrary to
science.
like the
Yeah.
prequels, right?
Yeah, and then now like it's so many people are having these different abilities.
Mhm.
They show like the healing. They show the I don't know what it
And,
is,
like, I
like
don't-
manipulation of objects
Yeah.
throughout
I don't feel,
space.
I
Yeah.
feel
They
like
can
you
teleport
can't argue
things.
with
Or,
what Rey and Kylo are doing just because they've proven to be the all-powerful being.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you saw Anakin, he was super powerful. Luke was super powerful.
Mhm.
Palpatine's super powerful. Like, he's more powerful than these two are.
Mhm.
But, like, these two specifically are, like, the strongest Jedis.
Mhm. Yeah, and I said earlier too, like the Force is sort of like the ultimate plot device, and it's like more like, you know, not like, you know, characters can use it to do absolutely anything, but it is cool to see it evolve as the movies go on and like used in different ways. So even removed from the fact that they're the two most powerful like Force users, I still think it's a really cool way for them to use the Force, especially in terms of visual creativity.
I like to think that like the Force is a tool, but it's not like it picks a side. You know,
Yeah.
it gives the powers to both the
Yeah.
Jedi and the Sith, and the power comes from like I feel like in this movie especially it was like the past users of either the
Yeah.
light side or the dark side.
Yeah.
And Palpatine was the culmination of all the Sith,
Yeah.
and versus the culmination of all the Jedi.
Yeah, which was one of the best scenes in the movie. But
my
we'll get to that.
We could talk about the favorite scenes later.
Yeah.
But amazing.
Yeah. So, in terms of the way they use the Force, I feel like it built off of The Last Jedi really well. The other way I feel like it built off of Last Jedi was Luke. Because, you know, people are saying, like, oh, the way Luke acts in this movie is contrary to the way he acts in The Last Jedi, and that's a retcon. I think it's just character development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he learned, like, obviously, by the end of The Last Jedi, he learned that being in exile wasn't gonna, like, help anything. Like, he removed himself from the situation because he was devastated because he basically caused the rise of the First Order and Kylo Ren because of his mistakes. But, you know, Yoda teaches him that failure is the greatest teacher and that he can't also lose Rey just because of that.
And, like, originally he wasn't going to go back into that final battle in 8.
Yeah.
Like, he was going to be like, whatever.
He literally says at the beginning of 8, like, you think I'm going to go out with a laser sword and face the whole First Order? And then he does.
I mean,
it showed character development in 8.
Yeah, but see, and then this is just, I feel like, a continuation of that. To where, like, you know, him catching the lightsaber and saying, like, a Jedi's weapon should be treated with more respect. That wasn't, like, saying, like, oh, yeah, the scene where he throws away the lightsaber in The Last Jedi was pointless and stupid. It's just that his head was in a different place at the beginning of that movie. And then over the course of that movie, he learned from his mistakes and then used that.
I mean, he's literally telling Rey, who's trying to follow in his footsteps, that he learned, and that's not the way to go about it.
Yeah,
it's a trilogy. If they're ending something in the last one that they started earlier, that's not a retcon. That's the ending of a story.
Yeah, it'd be weird if Luke ended off the trilogy being super grumpy and cynical.
Yeah, you can't. It's not like 3 different stories.
Yeah,
and they're trying to override one. They're starting one, and now this is how his character ends, which I'm pretty happy with.
Yes,
I feel definitely. Like this is becoming one of the biggest problems with moviegoers being like, oh, I can go see a movie even though I haven't seen the rest of the series. It's like people going into the Avenger movie feeling like it'll be fine.
Going into Endgame, like, but I even think it's sort of an expectations sort of thing, especially because there was such a gap between the original trilogy and this one.
Yeah,
to where people have their own idea of what Luke is supposed to be, and then if it's not exactly what they imagine, then there's backlash.
I mean, that's something this big. You always have expectations, and then if they don't meet them, you're going to be upset.
Yeah, they were never going to please anyone with the sequel trilogy.
I mean, it's hard to please anyone with anything.
Yeah.
But, like, if you're going to watch a movie, then try and watch the rest of whatever came before that movie.
It's a franchise.
Yeah. It's not something, like, you can't go into a episode 7 only watching episode 1 that
well, I even feel like even though the sequels are better if you've seen the original trilogy, and there's even something to be said about the effect that the prequels have on the original trilogy. Like, there are certain things that are cool. I almost feel like 1 through 6 are sort of like, you know, that's sort of like Darth Vader, like the core Skywalker story. And then the sequel trilogy is sort of a complementary story.
It's about the kids of Darth Vader and their kids.
Yeah.
It's like the generations afterwards. What the after effect of everything is, and like, how they're gonna keep balance.
One thing I saw somewhere was that people were saying, oh, the sequel trilogy is retconning episodes 1 through 6, which I think is completely stupid. Like, yeah, Darth Vader killed Palpatine in the 6th movie, but like Palpatine said, he can avoid death. Like,
yeah, and Anakin still plays a part in defeating him for good.
Yeah, like, he pushed him into like the shadows for 30 years.
Yeah,
which
it's not like he didn't fulfill his purpose, you know?
Yeah, like, Anakin wasn't the chosen one, and we learned that. Like, they thought he was because he was so force sensitive, but later on you learn it's not Anakin.
Well, even still, like, just the fact that, like, he does turn into Darth Vader against what the prophecy says, but then he does kill Palpatine. That's sort of the prophecy fulfilled. Yeah, he still fulfills his role in that. Yeah. So I don't feel like the sequel trilogy retcons that.
I mean, he brought balance to the Force for a time being. It just, if it gets unbalanced again, there has to be a new chosen one to bring balance again. Yeah. Which was Rey in this one.
Yeah. And you know what? For all we know, the cycle can continue into infinity. Even though this one does feel like the be-all, end-all, it does kind of, like, you know, there's always the chance for more, like, Sith or, like, dark side users to rise. You know, the dark side is never going to go away because balance is important.
All I know is that if there is any, like, if they ever do anything after episode 9, I don't want stormtroopers.
Yeah.
Like,
I just don't
good
want to. I don't.
stormtroopers
I'm been fine with the First Order. I think it's a cool evolution of the Empire. I don't want the Empire again if they go further into the future.
The Emperor created the stormtroopers. He created the First Order.
Yeah.
Now that he's completely gone, if they create a new Sith, I want something else.
Yeah.
I don't want any more.
Be a little bit more creative with it.
Go with that cult thing. That cult thing was
the
scary.
Oh yeah.
Imagine a cult as the evil side.
Ugh.
I would add
that was terrifying enough in this movie. Okay, so we were talking before about the way that Luke's character development built up from Last Jedi. One more thing I want to talk about before my final major point. Hux in this movie.
Let's go, Hux.
We talked
The
about
best
Hux
guy.
being awesome in The Last Jedi because he wants to be more commanding than he is and he's just weak and just can't do it. In this movie, he's a spy inside of the First Order for the Resistance.
Kylo Ren down.
Only because he doesn't want Kylo Ren to win.
Yeah, and I thought that was awesome because he's obviously jealous that Kylo Ren is in power instead of him because at the end of 8, he goes to try to kill him, but then he wakes up so he doesn't try to fight him because he knows he can't win. And I thought that was awesome how he was like, I don't care if you win, I just want Kylo Ren to lose. And the only bad part about that was that he got shot right afterwards.
What a dad!
I really wanted him to be fighting alongside everyone else at the end.
Finn to be like, okay, you're coming with us.
Yeah, like he could have been sort of a similar role to what Finn was in The Force Awakens, where he's been inside the First Order, so he knows he can help them.
Yeah.
I feel like it does make more sense for his character to not really care which side wins and just only help them out because he hates Kylo Ren.
Mm-hmm.
Like he showed them the first 2 movies.
So in a way, I'm kind of glad they didn't do that. I'm just sad that he went out so quickly because I love him.
If they were gonna keep going with the story, it would make sense for him to, after Kylo Ren turned good, be the one who leads the Sith again. But I mean, I'm okay with his death. I just wish he got more time fighting.
Yeah.
I was honestly surprised with the amount of minor major characters they killed in this movie.
Minor major characters.
Because episode
that's complete opposites of each
minor
other.
and major characters.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah.
Because in Revenge of the Sith they had to kill all the characters because that was the whole point of the movie.
Like Order 66 and stuff.
Yeah, but this movie they just kept killing people.
Man, what about your blonde girl?
What do you mean? I'm trying to remember.
She's brown haired now. I was confused.
The only major. Oh yeah,
she
true.
dyed her hair. I was so confused.
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember because I really don't remember major deaths other than
died.
Leia,
Ben, Leia.
Well, yeah, but see, that's the thing. Leia's death and Ben's sacrifice, not that I saw Ben's sacrifice coming, but it did make sense in the context of the story.
Died.
Oh yeah,
he died for a bit.
And then R2's like, I don't like this.
I actually had the memory the whole time.
Mm-hmm. See, that was one of my only kind of issues with the movie was that 3PO in the end, his memory being erased. I kind of felt like it was really only for them to put that dramatic line in the trailer where he's like taking one last look at my friends.
Yeah.
Because literally,
oh my God.
literally, not only do they, because I think C-3PO is awesome in this movie. I think he's really funny, but literally after that scene where he's taking one last look at my friends, they don't take erasing his memory seriously at all. Erasing his memory is something that's already happened before in the series, and he gets it back almost immediately from R2, which is something that he said before wasn't going to happen.
I think the only reason R2 didn't do it the time before is because they told him not to.
Well, as soon as he meets back up with R2, he restores his memory.
Yeah.
But he says R2 wouldn't be backing up my memory.
He says
I just think that was kind of a cheap thing.
You said they couldn't trust his memory banks, but I mean,
come on, that's R2-D2's best friend. They could.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. They just kind of had a lot of moments where they made you despair for a character. They made us think that Chewie was dead. They made us think
that's true.
R2-D2 was gonna be gone.
And I do
basically.
still like.
That's why the movie made me so nervous, because I didn't know when they were actually gonna kill someone
Yeah.
or not, because they made everything go so fast.
You don't have security with a final movie.
Mhm.
Like you don't know anyone's
Yeah.
gonna go past
Yeah, true.
this.
The I will say the best part about, even though I sort of just complained about it, I do think the best part about C-3PO's memory being erased is the line where he's like, they're literally about to do it, and he's like, "Oh, I just thought of something else we could try," and then
And
he
they
just turns
cut
off.
him off.
Shut up, 3PO.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no. If we're gonna talk about him,
I love
his
how, like,
Yeah.
comedy. In
I
this
love how
movie-
like big of assholes Finn and Poe are the 3PO,
Yeah, because
Yeah.
everyone was an asshole to 3PO in the original trilogy.
and they're just like,
Uh,
"Shut up, 3PO. We don't need to hear it right now."
Yeah. But I don't remember where we started talking about that, but
who knows?
okay, what was I?
That's why. it's more
Oh yeah, no, you were
unstable.
talking about deaths and stuff. I kind of want to. I forget what I was talking about before. I feel like the final sort of thing I want to talk about to end it off is the cameos and the fan service in this movie.
Yes.
Fan
because-
service was necessary.
Yeah, I feel like
That's
How
people-
do you end something without fan service?
yeah. See, because watching this movie, I was kind of getting the impression like, are they gonna do the Endgame equivalent of Star Wars? And there is hints of that in this movie, but you know, there's like callbacks and cameos and stuff. But I also feel like, it's not like Endgame in the fact that Endgame is literally like they go back in time to the other movies. There's a ton of jokes and recreations of scenes and callbacks.
Yeah.
Whereas this movie, it's just sort of to kind of tie everything together.
And I think
Where-
they did it perfectly.
I think they did it perfectly. I don't really get where the complaints are coming from in terms of fan service.
Yeah, if anything, if you want to complain about fan service in a movie this year, go complain about Endgame. 'Cause
Yeah.
that was
That
fan
is
service.
literally.
yeah, and I feel like that even
Yeah.
works well for that because they kind of have, you know, they have they had the 10 movies or 10 years of consistently making movies. They had like over 20 movies, so they kind of had the fan base built up for like expecting some sort of thing like that, where like you get a sort of payoff for being a fan. I feel like here, you know, it is still a contained movie and it's still part of this specific trilogy,
And
but there's enough like it's just enough to where you feel like if you've been watching every single Star Wars movie since the beginning, it's like there's payoff for certain things and it's satisfying. As like, you know, there's the callback in the beginning with him saying the line from the Tragedy of Darth Plagueis, but then like, you know,
Luke raising the X-wing.
Luke raising the X-wing
Oh
in the
my
same
God,
style
yeah.
as Yoda, and like, you know, Lando comes back in this movie. He's flying the Millennium Falcon again with Chewie, and
Palpatine's back, Lando's back.
yeah,
Lando,
Luke
Lando
Skywalker's
being like,
there,
"Send
and
Leia
Leia's
my love,"
there.
Han
when she
Solo
dies.
has
Han
a cameo.
Solo is there. This is the best
Yeah.
movie ever.
I mean, and especially towards the end, there's a lot of like, I mean, obviously the biggest one is Rey is about to be defeated, and she looks up to the stars and she hears the voices of all the previous Jedi Masters.
Yeah.
That was probably like that scene was so exciting to me because I went into this really like I didn't know exactly what to expect, but I was really hoping that Hayden Christensen would have a cameo,
Mhm.
and he does,
Mhm.
and it's awesome. And it's not just him. It's like, you know, it's Hayden Christensen, it's Ewan McGregor, it's
Sam Jackson.
Sam Jackson,
Liam
Liam
Neeson.
Neeson,
Liam Neeson.
even like the voice actress that
Yoda.
played Ahsoka in the Clone Wars
Yeah.
is there. Like just and like other characters from the Clone Wars whose names I can't even pronounce or remember.
I think it's just like anyone that was ever like a,
A
master
Jedi
able
master.
to become a Force ghost.
Mhm. Except I looked it up. Tall head guy was not there.
Really?
Yeah,
Yikes.
which is kind of sad.
Maybe it
But-
was. He just didn't get a line. Like he was gonna say something.
He just
but then
he,
Ray
he,
got up.
he
It's
did
like,
it in
oh.
spirit.
They probably
Um,
just like focused it into anyone that like surrounded themselves with Skywalker. Like
Yeah.
Mace Windu was killed by him. Yoda mentored
Yeah.
him.
Well, I mean, if you watch the Clone Wars, tall head guys around Anakin, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't take away from the effect of the scene. I was
I'm
just
nitpicking this
I
too
remember
much.
like it was so exciting watching for the first time because I like sort of realized what they were doing slowly. Like
I realized what they
I
were
started
doing
hearing
right
the voices.
away.
I thought it was just gonna be archive clips, but then I heard Hayden Christensen say like, you know, like Rey overcome the darkness as I did or whatever, and I was like, oh shit, they're actually like they actually, and especially because it starts with Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan saying, Rey, these are your final steps, rise and take them. Especially because in The Force Awakens, in Rey's vision, you can faintly hear him say, Rey, these are your first steps.
Yeah.
So that was really good closure as part of that scene.
I love how in this movie it starts with like Palpatine letting Kylo Ren hear all the voices of the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was like, I'm every single like voice you've heard in your head, and then you heard like Vader's mask, and you heard you hear Snoke. You hear all of that, and you know that like he is all the Sith, and in this moment you finally realize how much like Jedi she has in her.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like that's also especially satisfying because not only is she fighting Palpatine in the moment, but she's the descendant of Palpatine. So it's kind of cool that the descendant of the most evil person in the galaxy ends up being the culmination of every hero in the galaxy.
All the Jedi.
So I thought that was awesome. But other than that scene, which I think is probably the biggest instance of fan service, there's a lot more stuff. There's like the guy I think his name's Wedge. He's one of the pilots in A New Hope that did the Death Star run. He shows up in the finale. Anthony Daniels, the guy that plays C-3PO, he shows up as a pilot in the finale.
Does he?
Yeah, I think John Williams makes a cameo as a character, but I don't remember seeing him. But apparently he is in the movie somewhere. Chewbacca finally gets a medal at the end of this movie.
Yes, of course.
Which I've seen. It's really weird. It's just one of those things where like I've seen people complain about it, where it's like, I didn't need to see that. I was like, yeah, you didn't need to see it, but I mean, what's wrong with it being there?
Yeah.
It's just kind of like,
I feel like the fan service was done perfectly with this movie.
Yeah, I did too.
Like, they weren't forcing it.
Yeah.
And if you watched all 9 movies, you understood.
Mm-hmm. And then, at the end of the movie, we do see familiar planets. Most of the sequel trilogy has taken place on familiar planets. They do go to Endor. I don't know if it's the same moon as the one from Return of the Jedi, but they do go to an Endor moon.
It probably was because Ewoks.
Well, they show the Ewoks at the end of this movie, which was something I was going to mention because they show Cloud City, they show the Endor moon with the Ewoks, and I think Warwick Davis is still playing the Ewok that they show. I don't remember his name. And then at the end, Rey goes to Tatooine and buries the lightsabers. But I don't know if the moon they go to and they fight on the Death Star ruins, I don't know if that's the same one, just because Star Wars typically likes to keep each planet just a singular biome, and I don't know if they would like, because it does look very different than the Endor moon that we're used to, and they do. I feel like if I remember correctly, the way they worded it made it seem like it was on a different moon, than the other one, especially because they show it at the end and they do look very different. But I don't know. But yeah, all those locations show up at the end. And I feel like probably the final bit, which isn't even like a legacy thing, it's just something really cool, is that after Rey buries Luke and Leia's lightsabers in the sand, it's revealed that she built her own lightsaber, and it's a yellow one, and it's the first time. I mean, we've seen yellow lightsabers in other things. This is the first time we've seen it in one of the theatrical movies.
The movies, yeah.
So I thought that was really cool. And even though she gives her name as Skywalker at the end of the movie, I feel like that sort of like represents, like, even though she is sort of carrying on their legacy in a way in terms of what they fought for and what they represented, she is kind of coming into her own as like a warrior.
Yeah.
And I think you looked it up earlier, and like a yellow lightsaber is sort of the symbol of fighting off the Sith.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So I thought that was really cool because, obviously the whole movie is about her fighting off the Sith. So
yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like Nick said, I think they handled the fan service pretty much perfectly.
Yeah, it was
very
in perfect ways. Like, Luke came right when he was needed to. Han was there when he was needed, not like just thrown in
honestly,
to make a cameo to please people.
One thing that they could have over fan serviced and I would have been fine with was if they had all the Force Ghosts walk in.
Yeah. See, that's what that's what I was thinking. I feel like it's probably, like, I was thinking about it because I think it would have been cool if we got to see them. I really did want to see them, but I also felt like it would have been a little bit weird because you know, I especially with Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan, they kind of like, you know, Obi-Wan has appeared before as his older self as a Force ghost.
Yeah.
So it'd be kind of weird. Well, see, yeah, and Anakin being replaced by Hayden Christensen in Return of the Jedi was a special edition retcon, which didn't make that much sense. And I feel like, you know, maybe they would have been able to get away with it, but also like some of the actors from the cartoons that didn't show up in the live action movies, they didn't have actors. So
yeah,
I mean, they could have, you know, done the makeup and made them look like that for that one scene, but I feel like it's probably for the best and less complicated in terms of lore that they just stay voices.
Plus, it would have been hard to get all those physical people there.
Yeah,
and it's easier. It might have been like possible for some, but not for all.
Yeah, to be real, it'd take an extra $1 million just to get Sam Jackson on set.
Or Liam Neeson. Yeah,
Liam Neeson back or Sam Jackson. I wanted.
I wonder how much money it took for them to get Han Solo back.
A lot.
Yeah.
What I wanted at least like maybe one Force ghost to like when she was on the ground and like basically cool passing out. If someone I wanted it to be like Obi-Wan coming to pick her up or something, and then like pointed up to the sky, and then you heard the voices of everyone else.
Yeah. See, Luke and Leia showing up as Force ghosts at the end on Tatooine. Good. That's enough for me.
That was
really good.
The most satisfying.
Yeah.
That was how it should have ended, and I'm happy that it ended that way.
Yeah, me too. So I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover in terms of what I really liked about it. I did kind of go over most of my problems when we were talking about it, which are like things that I'm relatively forgiving on.
It doesn't really get me angry. There's nothing in this movie for me was
we talked about everything.
Yeah, I think the only thing that was that bothered me, which is a very minor thing, but it's the only thing I haven't mentioned yet, is that the Sith Wayfinders felt a little bit weird to me, especially because the Sith are kind of represented as sort of like, I don't know, even though they conjure up like a ton of Star Destroyers and everything, they don't strike me as the type to use like a technological compass sort of thing.
Yeah.
So when I saw that, all I thought was just like Endgame when they were going to find the stones, or Pirates of the Caribbean, they were getting the pieces of 8.
Yeah,
it's just a treasure hunt.
They
for
need
whatever.
a thing.
Yeah, but I mean, at least
Disney.
like, I mean, maybe not in terms of pirates.
Crisis did it too.
Yeah, maybe not in terms of pirates, but at least in the Marvel, in the MCU, the Infinity Stones were set up in all the other movies, and they're kind of implemented into each movie in a way that makes sense.
Yeah. It's a weird thing they throw in.
Yeah. And that's not even that weird, but one scene that was a little bit weird to me that I feel like I probably would have done a little bit differently, and this is, again, a very minor thing, but when when Rey is on the island with Luke, and, you know, Kylo Ren destroyed the Sith Wayfinder that she had, and she's like, you know, like, she needs to go find Palpatine, and she's like, the Wayfinder was destroyed, and Luke is like, you have everything you need. I thought what that meant was that because she's related to Palpatine, they're connected through the Force, so she could use the Force to find her way to Palpatine. Yeah. But she just ends up going into Kylo Ren's. She just ends up going into Kylo Ren's ship and stealing the other Wayfinder. I was like, oh, okay, so it was pointless to worry about the fact that Kylo Ren destroyed the Sith Wayfinder.
Yeah.
She had it whole time.
I feel like it would have been cooler if she just used the Force to find him.
I feel like that'd be dangerous, because then he'd know that she was coming.
Yeah, I felt like they should have made the Wayfinder more Force using thing in general. Like, it's the planet of the Sith. You would need to like access the Force to have it guide you to the planet. Is what I would hope it would be.
I think the Wayfinder was just a way to introduce all the different characters, like
because they go all over the place. And
they get Lando, and then Poe's wannabe girlfriend.
Oh yeah,
and then the
ex-stormtrooper.
Maybe they needed a questing item.
They
just needed something to chase after to
they
take
needed
them
to
from place to
find
place.
the map.
Yeah, and I feel like whatever it was gonna be, this does the job. It's fine.
I just wish it was a bit less technological and more Force.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Like the prequel said, it's science.
But I mean, yeah,
like Thor said, your ancestors call it magic.
none
and
of
you
these
call it
things
science.
are that bad because it's hard to find things to not
See,
like
yeah,
about
see,
the
most
movie.
of my problems are things I either don't care that much about, or they're so minor that I'm like, it
Doesn't
really,
matter.
in the grand scheme of things, I'm not even really gonna think about it, other
Yeah.
than when I'm trying to think about things to pick apart. I loved this movie.
It was amazing.
I thought it was awesome. So, I mean, that's pretty much all I
Okay,
have
so
to
we
say
have
about
two
it.
more things to do. We rate them, and then we
Rank them?
We promised to rank them. So
Oh.
we rate then rank.
Yeah, I was like, oh god.
Are we all gonna put this at the top?
I mean, he won't. Okay.
No, that-
It's
I'm-
one of those.
we'll see.
It's one of
We'll
those.
see.
It's one of those things where, like, after I saw Endgame, I was so hyped up over it. I was so excited, and I was like, that's
That's the
I
best
was
thing I've ever
was
seen.
going out of it. I was like, that's probably my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah.
The more time goes on, the more I kind of am able to. I appreciate it for what it is, and it's sort of. I almost. There's certain things about this movie that are similar to Endgame in the fact that it's more an event.
Yeah.
And that sort of elevates it above the others. But also, there's other things when you look at it as a movie,
Yeah,
that sort of make me question where I would rank it. So
maybe that's why the critics' rating is
yeah, so to
low.
really accurately rank it against all the other movies, I would probably need to see it again. But
Yeah.
I'm still gonna rank it anyway when we get to that.
Yeah.
Just because we said that we would, so I'm just gonna go off of what I'm feeling right now, and it might change later down the
Okay.
line.
Yeah.
Just check
So-
my Twitter if you care.
so- For
I
me,
don't.
personally, when I was watching episode 9, like, you know us, we watch movies all the time,
Mhm.
but it just felt different.
Yeah.
Like, watching Endgame, it was one thing, it felt different, but this felt like I was in tune the entire time. I was happy watching it,
Mhm.
and I was nervous watching it, which was, like, probably my best. Like, a lot of people say Endgame was their best experience watching a movie.
Mhm.
This was my best experience.
Mm.
And so, like, for me, I feel like going on forever, this might become my favorite.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't know if that's for sure, but right now,
Yeah.
that's me.
And I totally get that. I totally
Yeah.
get that. So, are we gonna go around and rank?
Gabe, you have any
Rate it?
last words?
Yeah, I mean, it's right now. I saw this movie today. You guys saw it like.
Yeah, we saw it yesterday.
So,
So
we've had
I'm-
a little time.
I'm
Yeah.
the most hyped up on fan service and emotions about this movie. And something like that, like I'm gonna need to watch many more times. But trying to be more humble about it, I was really engaged with this movie. I was like feeling something for all of these characters. The character development, which is a big thing in movies for me, was satisfying. I was just so happy watching the movie
Mhm.
in all aspects.
Yeah. I mean, I pretty much agree with everything.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, I'm
I'm
gonna
just
give it
like-
a 10 out of 10.
I'm gonna give it
Mhm.
Okay, Gabe, here we go.
8 Kylo Rens out of 7 Ben Solos.
Ah, shit! You took my rating.
That's right.
I was gonna fucking do it.
That's not
Ben
how
Solo versus
100%
Kylo Ren.
works.
Yeah, right.
Now I gotta think of something else. I give it 9 rays out of the Emperor.
Okay.
Okay.
Pretty good.
No,
that
Chris.
sounds wrong when I think about it because he's just like he's just producing more kids.
Okay,
I
we're
did-
done.
oh, yeah,
We're done. We're done. We're
Nine
done.
rays
We're done.
out of the Emperor.
Yeah, I said we did say earlier, who the hell would fuck Palpatine?
I don't know, man.
Had to be someone during the Clone Wars because he does not look good after that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he just used like the.
Okay,
Mind
Chris.
The
trick.
midi-chlorians.
We're not
Oh,
talking
God.
about this anymore.
Oh,
Oh
Stop.
god. Yeah, see that's the thing. You take all the lightheartedness out of Star Wars and it's
Yeah.
just like use the Jedi mind trick to friggin'
Use the
sexually
Jedi mind
assault
trick to have
someone.
sex.
God damn. Alright.
I mean, he's
This
that
is why
evil.
we're not
Let's
kid-friendly.
rank these movies.
Okay,
We
Chris,
did.
you first.
Are we gonna include Solo and Rogue One? Because I've watched them recently, so they're also fresh in my mind as much as the other movies are.
I think we're gonna
So.
go with the Skywalker saga today.
Okay.
so it's
I
just
can't.
numbers.
Yeah.
Well,
I haven't watched.
I haven't
the
watched
movies.
Solo in a while.
okay. I'm gonna include them in my ranking just
Okay.
because I want to.
Why do you ask
You go.
us?
well,
I'll try. I'll do it.
well,
Yeah,
because I just didn't know whether you guys wanted to put it in yours too.
I mean, I can try.
It won't
I just
be-
haven't
well,
seen
you don't
Solo.
have to if you haven't watched it recently. They're also fresh in my mind,
I
so
watched
it feels
Rogue One
just
with
feels
you,
right to
but I
compare
also
them to
fell
the
asleep
rest.
during it. So,
So
did you hear me snoring while watching Rogue One?
yes, I mean you were sitting right next to me, and I was awake the whole movie. So
Yeah, I fell asleep halfway through it.
Did
Yeah.
you really?
Yeah, I got bored. and I
Rogue
was
One is not
tired.
as good as I remember it being. Speaking of, let's rank these movies. Okay, so as of right now, based on my most recent rewatch, I'm gonna put. This is hard. This is really hard because a lot of them I feel like are almost tied for me.
Yeah. Some of them are very.
You can
close.
have one tied spot.
Okay, well,
Use it wisely.
all right. Force
Damn.
Awakens, I feel like, is probably still my number one. And then 2, because I feel like I do need to, in order to figure out how highly Rise of Skywalker ranks, in terms of my very tops, I need to see it again. So, in terms of what I'm feeling right now, so I think it's probably Force Awakens, Empire and Last Jedi are pretty much tied for me. If I had to choose, I'd probably put Empire above Last Jedi. So, Force Awakens, Empire, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker,
Wow.
A New Hope, Solo, Return of the Jedi, Rogue One. Actually, no. I put 3 above Rogue One. I didn't
Good.
before,
Good.
but I
I was
rewatched 3
worried.
and I liked it more than I
Yes.
remembered liking it. So, well, I always remember liking 3, but like when I saw Rogue One the first time, I was like, that was awesome. And I hadn't seen the prequels in a while, so I just ranked the prequels at the bottom exclusively. So, then it would go 3, Rogue One, 1, 2.
2. Yeah. Okay.
So since I kind of danced around it a little bit, so Force Awakens, Empire, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, New Hope, Solo, Return of the Jedi, 3, Rogue One, 1, 2. 2 is still the worst Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think how I'm gonna do it is go from the bottom up because it's much easier to.
Oh,
Figure
much
out
easier to
what's
like
worse.
go based on the one you dislike the most and work your way up.
Yeah, I'm gonna have
I already
episode-
have mine known, but I'll go last.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because you already know. We're trying to figure this out.
Yeah, we.
2 at the bottom, and then
Yes.
I mean 1 after that.
Mhm.
I definitely liked 3 above Rogue One,
Mhm.
so I'll put Rogue One next, and then 3, and then I know what's gonna be around my top favorites.
Mhm.
Definitely. So I'm gonna put. It's so tough because these are really close.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, there's
you get the-
like if I could tie multiple spots, probably multiple spots would be tied.
After
on my
we
list,
rank them,
but-
Chris will put them all on a list.
will I?
Yeah, I'll
Sure.
make the list and then write it out.
All right.
That's what you get for editing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will put. So hard. It's so hard.
Nick,
Good
do you want to
grade.
go while Gabe
No.
thinks about it?
No.
He's not
Okay.
letting me.
I'm gonna put episode. I don't want to say 8, because like I didn't. My first impression was lower than I think about it now, looking
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Nick,
first
go.
impression is
Yeah,
your...
Nick, you
Okay.
do yours, and Gabe will.
Okay, so we're gonna start with my number 1, episode 9,
Mhm.
and then episode 5, and then it's a tie between 7 and 8 for
Yeah.
third place
Mhm.
because I can't really. They're 2 different movies.
They are very different, but yeah.
And then for the 4th place, episode 3,
Mhm.
and then
That's pretty high for 3.
Shut up.
I mean,
Honestly,
no, it was good.
And
Yeah.
then 6, Rogue One, Solo, 4, 1, 2.
wow, 4 ranks really low on your list.
I completely
See-
forgot to put
I-
talking about Solo.
I know you say like it
I
doesn't.
really like A New Hope, but like it's such a slow movie,
Mhm.
and I just can't watch it full anymore.
Yeah.
To where like all the other like newer movies are all super fast, and even Empire and Return are
Yeah.
faster.
You kind of, when you watch A New Hope, you kind of have to take it for what it is.
It's the same way with
But,
episode 1 and 2.
yeah.
They're just
It's still,
so
it's
slow.
absolutely still great for what it is.
Yeah,
but,
A New Hope is
Yeah.
an amazing movie, but it's just
yeah.
it's not
Just
rewatchable to me.
put up against the others, I guess.
Yeah.
I really like New Hope, but I don't know what exactly to rank it. So I'm gonna put next episode 6.
Well, you should probably redo your original.
Yeah, so I mean 2,
just to
one.
catch us back up to speed with.
I put
where you're
episode 2, then episode 1, and then on
Mhm.
top of that is Rogue One, and then on
Mhm.
top of that is episode 3, and I'll put episode 6. Then I'll put Solo.
Mm-hmm.
I'll put then episode 8, and then episode 4. No Hope there.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're getting
Now you're down to 7, 5, and 9, right?
yeah. I'm gonna put 9 at the top, for right now. and then I'll put it's just the most like engaged I was out
Yeah.
of all these movies, and then I'm gonna put 5 at the second, and then 7 at the
Nice.
third spot.
Nice. I respect that. All right. Well, I gotta type those up and make a fancy graphic for them. And this
We'll work on that.
podcast is long enough as it is. So, if you've listened to the entire Star Wars Skywalker Saga review, which you probably haven't,
What
but
is wrong with you?
on the off chance that you did,
I'm
to the
so
one
sorry.
person
Thank-
who's done that?
yeah, I mean, if
besides
you're
us
listening
three.
to this, it probably means that you did. So, thank you very much
Thanks, Jason.
for listening to us. Yeah,
Thanks, Jason.
Yeah,
we'll put your
we'll put
face.
his face in the corner.
What's your face in there?
Well-
I don't
Your
even see
Instagram.
it.
Yeah, I mean,
For a second.
so if you've been listening to the entire Star Wars Skywalker Saga review so far, thank you very much for listening. Even if you just only listened to this episode specifically, thank you very much for listening. We know it was a long one, and we're very appreciative that you actually cared about what we had to say. We're interested to hear what you guys think about all these movies, and we hope that you'll tune back in when the Unstable Opinions podcast returns early next year.
Next year.
So
When we review The Mandalorian.
are we gonna? Yeah, we can do it. I mean,
we
honestly,
definitely should.
I mean, we could review like we already said we're gonna review the Mandalorian, but we also, we could do Solo and Rogue One later down the line.
We could.
But
We have John.
We have been on
Time.
we have John Wick. We have
Yeah.
there's just so many things.
John Wick
to-
and Matrix, which means maybe we will review the first 3 Matrixes.
I mean, those movies are pretty far off, but
yeah.
I'm still
But there's just
eager
just
to watch
spoilers
those movies
for
again. So
for the new year.
anyway, there's going to be a lot of cool stuff coming up in future episodes. So thank you very much for listening to this one. Hopefully we'll see you in the next one. We love you. Thank you for listening.
We'll see you next year.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
May the force be with you.
Shut up.
Always.